Holy fucking fuck.
What's up, everyone?
Yeah. Glad you're back. So, what's this guy's name? Steven, what?
Heger?
Yeah.
Probably fucking it up.
So, Jace did a podcast with this dude. He's a photographer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He did record it on his own after calling me multiple times while I was in the doctor's office.
That was not this podcast.
Oh, that was not this one? Oh.
No.
Well, he recorded on his own and he went totally rogue, and that explains a lot. Nah, but I did fix it. It's all right. It's pretty good.
Yeah, the cool thing about Steve is we met Steve on the road last year on the way to California, which I guess I've probably said a million times on here, but you know, just for the sake of you understanding the connection with this podcast, we met him at Monument Valley. He took some pictures of us, and we ended up finding out that he actually is from Dallas. And so, you know, through the glories of social media, we were able to stay connected on the road. And we had talked about wanting to get some other people on here, and then it dawned on me that I knew this guy, and you know, and he was down to come out and sit down and share some of his insight on the photography business, and you know, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of the type of stuff that we do in the motorcycle world. I mean, I don't know how many of you take it seriously with like shooting pictures and stuff like that or whatnot, but you know, I feel like it's relative to what we all do. So I thought it'd be cool to have him on, and I enjoyed it. We hell, how long was the podcast?
2 something hours.
I mean, we were able to fill up 2 hours with rambling, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So it was cool to have him on and get that going. We're counting down the days till Texas Hills show. I mean, that shit is coming up quick, and a lot of things are coming up quick for me with, you know, the Texas Hills, and then the weekend after that, we're taking a trip to Cali. Also, if you guys are in town, you know, we'll be at the Anvil Pub tonight, actually, if you're hearing this. We'll be there tonight from 8 till whenever, so if you got a bike and you want to come fuck with us and hang out, come on down. I don't know what the weather's like as of now, but let's just assume that it's good, and we'll go from there. But Texas Hills, if you're planning on rolling down, I think that, you know, just reach out to me on Instagram. We're going to leave Dallas, or, for instance, my side of town, which is Red Oak. We're going to leave about 8 a.m. and head south, go down, take a little back roads, end up at Texas Performance MC, who just so happens to be the sponsor of this podcast. So check him out, TexasPerformanceMC.com and Texas Performance MC on IG. We're actually going to be rolling through his shop, shooting the shit. Maybe he's going to ride out with us. I don't know and have not confirmed that. But, yeah, if you want to check out his shop firsthand, you know, roll down with us. We'll be going through there on the way down. Should be fun. I'm looking forward to this weekend. It's always good to hang out with Texas boys and do camping and biking and all that type of stuff. I'm going to actually try and not drink this weekend.
It's going to be weird.
Yeah. So I'm either going to be a grumpy little bitch or I'm going to give up and drink. So
probably going to give up.
Yeah, it's probably the best thing to do. But yeah, just if you want to come down, reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook or however you talk to me, and we'll link up. You know, I'd like to roll down with a decent sized group, all you Dallas cats that want to come down. So just hit me up and let me know if you want to go. I hope a lot of you do go. I hope a lot of you make the effort to come down. I mean, like we talked about in other podcasts, Dustin and Zombie Mike and Alex, these guys, you know, went out on a limb to create an event for everybody. So, you know, I'm sure you probably call in to get the new Call of Duty when it comes out. So maybe you should call in and do some bike shit with some biker dudes. You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind. And if you can, cool. If you can't, I guess I understand. I really don't, but I guess.
See.
Go ahead.
No, it's cool. I wasn't gonna say anything, you know, particularly interesting.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, trying to make everything happen. Hopefully, this weekend will be awesome. Have a great time. We'll meet some new friends. All that kind of good jazz and Jimmy jazz and blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
Also, one of our sponsors, man, don't forget Paint Huffer Metal Flake. Glad they came back aboard. Man, that's all we do up in here is shoot that flake, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Making all these basic paint jobs we do look 10 times better. I don't know, man. I'm just happy that those guys are back on board. I think it's really hard for me to tell, but I feel like out there in Phoenix where they're at, man, they're really like building like a storefront. And I need to call them up and see what all the details are. That way, if you guys are out in Phoenix, you can go check it out firsthand. But it's looking like it's going to be a one-stop shop for all the custom painters' needs. And I mean, I could be speaking out of my ass right now, so don't hold me to that. But maybe you should just follow them on Instagram, Paint Huffer Metal Flake on the web. I can't remember. Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram.
Yeah.
PaintHuffer.com is the website. So yeah, check them all out and reach out to them, man. Let them know you heard about them through us and all that good stuff. That way we can track our reach. And yeah, that's all the sponsors. So
whoop whoop.
Pretty much, yeah. So Steve Heger, I can't really remember, but we actually get it figured out at the beginning of this podcast. So yeah, follow him on Instagram, man. He's a rad dude, man. I actually got to meet him doing this podcast, like actually get to know him. So it was actually pretty interesting to kind of hear his background and how he fell into photography and how he took it from there and where he went. And that was pretty cool. Like I said, I just met him on the side of a road. So,
right.
I knew of him and we have, liked each other's photos for a while, but it was cool to get to know the guy on a first name basis kind of situation. So I don't really have anything else, man. Stressful day, a lot of shit going on. Don't know what I want to talk about on here yet, but it's a pain in the ass. So sorry for my shortness, I guess you'd say. Being short with you guys.
Yeah, you can go with that.
But yeah, anyway, man, if you guys, like I said, if you're going to be in town, you want to catch up, come to Anvil Pub tonight, Tuesday, 8 p.m.
Today's Monday, dude.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night.
Well, when they
Tonight.
hear this.
Fuck, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So come out, shoot the shit and meet everybody, man. Our DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth, Dynas, FXRs, and performance scene is starting to take shape. It's starting to, have some substance and some dudes in it. And these guys, so far, all seem really cool as fuck. So come out. Also, check them out on Instagram, DFW Dynas. I think there's spaces and all that shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, check them out. And I hope you enjoy this podcast. And thank you.
Hey, guys. You ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
I love his podcast, and I never watch one of the full ones or listen to a full podcast, but I'll catch one of the excerpts, the little snippets of one of his guests that goes on. I mean, it still goes for 20, 30 minutes or whatever.
But yeah, that's what's cool about his podcast, man, because he has a better way of doing stuff than we do, because he has, the money or somebody that knows how to do all the, with doing a video and then taking a good rant out of that video and putting it on YouTube to where, you don't have to listen to the full 3.5 hour conversation to get that one.
The real
statement.
good bits, Or they can chop it up into 5 30-minute segments or whatever and get all the different topics.
Yeah, the good thing about also, for a lot of people who don't know, it's like you can watch the YouTube video, but you can also get onto just like on your iPhone app, and while you're driving or while you're working all day, you just put it on and listen.
Yeah.
And for us doing the drive, because we drive back and forth to Cali so much that it's like, fuck, man, like Pandora gets old.
Yeah, gotta have something more than just that playlist over and over.
There's a podcast that I listened to the last time. I drove solo up to the Bay Area to deliver some parts and pick up some more.
It's a long one.
And I started listening to this Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, and all the way there, I learned everything about World War I. I kind of forgot a lot of it, but I was an expert. Like, I got there and I wanted to tell people about it. Like, man, so do you know this about World War I? That shit blew my mind, And everyone's
like, what the hell is wrong with you?
All right, so we're rolling now. It's going. So I guess tell everybody your name.
Yeah, so Stephen Heger, photographer, Dallas, Texas.
Nice. And I think I guess maybe the cool part of you sitting here is like how we met,
Yeah, I was thinking about it this morning. Yeah, so that the night that we met, well, it wasn't the night, but I met you before you met me. You don't know this yet. So we were rolling in. Those that don't know, we were in Monument Valley in Arizona. Yeah, and we had so my sister and I, we had drove through the night. Got there super late. We were like late check-in. I think we're probably there midnight, 12:30. Had to go and check in. They have like a hotel, checked in there, went to the campsite where we're going to stay. And you guys were out there wrenching on something, causing all kind of ruckus. The only lights in the middle of nowhere was like you, 5 guys?
Us, 3 other dudes.
Yeah, so wrenching, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these guys are going to be making noise all night or whatever. Then in the morning, saw you guys before you were rolling out. And you had like a broken through axle or something that you had duct taped together. And it's in that photo that we have, that big group photo. I think it's the one that we can see it on your bike. But that cracked me up. I was thinking about that this morning. That duct tape holding your bike together.
It happened. We were coming through Mexican Hat, which is, the major town the major settlement, I guess you would call it, before you get to Monument Valley. And I noticed it, and there was just all these different emotions going on. Like, I was like, holy shit, like, am I gonna be able to solve this? That it was a 40-mile ride from where I noticed it to where we camped, and then 60 miles to the next town, which is at, I can't pronounce it, I'm not even gonna try to, but they had Ace Hardware, and they had one bolt in the bend that fit, and it's still on there today. Never came off. But that was a very, that had me feeling strange, going down the road. So, and then ever since then, I'll be riding, I'm like,
is it still there? And y'all are halfway. Arizona. Y'all were going to
Bay Area.
Bay Area. Yeah. That's crazy.
So you left Dallas and got there that first night? Or how long was it? Or did you go somewhere and stop? Because I'm doing it in 2 weeks. Me and my wife are taking the van up there.
Back to Monument Valley?
Yeah, we're going to try to stay in that same spot.
So we drove through, and that was just going to be like a holdover camp spot. So we drove through. I think it was like 12 hours straight through. Got there, woke up early morning, saw you guys and left. I mean, we were probably out of there by 10 o'clock, 11. And then that trip we ended up going, we were doing all the national parks across Utah. So we started far southwest and went all the way across to Moab, which is basically on like the eastern border of Utah.
So my cousin and her husband, they just told us that in June they're gonna fly into like Colorado and rent a car and then go see, Arches National Park,
so
Monument
sick,
Valley.
so sick.
I was always under the impression that what is that? The Havasu was like by Lake Havasu, where all the boats go and stuff. But he was telling me all the shit you see on Instagram, like all the badass like waterfalls. Is down in the Grand Canyon.
And on reservation. And
he said that you have to he said that it was like to get in like to reserve a spot, it opens at like February and you have to reserve it for the year, and you only have like
totally booked out. It's crazy.
Like he said, within like a day or 2 hours or something, it's booked out for the entire year.
I believe it.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
So what was you you did with that trip was just all Utah, just taking pictures, doing more?
All Utah except for the one stay in Monument Valley overnight, and then what else? We did a couple little things on the way. Like we did Antelope Canyon. That's like it's like right outside Page, I think, Arizona. And then we did Horseshoe Bend, which is right. I think it's like west of Lake Powell. That was probably the gnarliest thing I saw the whole time.
For real?
Yeah. If y'all are going through there, you need to stop and see it, because it's one of the ones that all that stuff blows my mind, because you can get right up to the edge of everything, and it's just like, okay, we trust you, or you're gonna die or whatever, like.
There's no safety wire for the.
No, I mean there's nothing. There's a parking lot. you hike to it, and then, I mean, if you wanted to, you can fall right off the edge.
Real.
Yeah, it's cool.
So the Horseshoe Bend, where's that at? Like, what's?
It's some river. It's probably Colorado River. That I imagine feeds into Lake Powell, but it's just a section of the river that has carved out, kind of like the Grand Canyon has, to where just in the rock, the river takes this big literal horseshoe bend. It's one of the photos I've got on my Instagram is on there, but it's wild.
That's cool. So I guess so everybody kind of know who you are and what you do. I mean, you're a photographer by trade, right?
Yep.
So how'd you get into that? What pushed you into photography? You know what I mean?
I kind of fell into it. I mean, not by accident, but just kind of by chance. I was going to school, doing petroleum engineering, and just hated it. Every minute of it was just awful. All the classes and coursework, every single bit of it is like just weed out. Like, there's not much, unless it's something you just really think that you want to do. And this was my mindset. It's like, I'm thinking about all the couple of years that I've got ahead of me doing coursework for something that I'm not super jazzed about, and it's already basically trying to kick me out. And I'm having to like compete for a spot that is overfilled to begin with. And just,
what is the business of that? Like the petroleum engineering, is that oil field stuff, or is it
I didn't know where I would go with it. Really the reason that I decided that it was interesting is, one, it paid really well, and two, so I was at Texas A&M, and it was the major that at the time had the highest job placement out of school. It was like 99.
So you went into it kind of looking at it from like when you're in high school and they're all walking around with the college brochure.
Yeah, basically.
Sell you the career.
Yeah, like, I don't know what I want to do. This sounds cool. This makes a lot of money. Sweet. That sounds awesome. Yeah, and then
this
you get
pay off the student loan.
Yeah, you get there and then it's like, oh, this just sucks. So while I was at A&M, I wasn't working for him because I wasn't getting paid, but was shooting a little bit for a student magazine called Maroon Weekly, and just liked it. It was like the one thing. It wasn't the one thing, but it was one of the things that while school just sucked, that like that's where I was having a really good time, was getting out and getting behind the camera and shooting a little bit. So finished up. First year at A&M, just thinking like, oh my gosh, do I want to keep doing this, or do I need to, like, if I'm going to make a change, it seems like the best time to do it before I get really locked into something that I just hate. So decided like, well, okay, I like photography. I like where this is going for me. So transferred to a school in Austin, and I have my degree in photography.
That's cool.
Yeah, so
you were able to switch everything over and start studying photography.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't seamless, but it turned out well.
Yeah, I guess Austin would be the place to be. I mean, you got all the parks and the hiking that they have there, on top of like being on the cusp of the hill country.
Yeah.
And then there's so much culture there compared
It's awesome.
to everywhere else here in Texas.
Yeah, I miss it just about every single day.
There's a big part of me that wants to be there. There's a big part of me that wants to be in Cali. Just because, like I said, before we moved in this house, me and my wife lived in downtown Dallas.
Okay.
So we had a nice little loft down there, and bar downstairs. Just a lot of a social atmosphere. And then we come to the suburbs, and when I tell people, man, suburbs are like they are like Black Death, dude. Like, they will grab a hold of your foot, and they kill you with convenience to the point to where you feel like you can't get out of here. You're like, oh man, got to go back downtown. Oh man, I don't want to pay extra $100 for parking. You get scared of the price tag of things, but
Well, and it takes you 30 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know anything about the structure of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, it is huge.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but we were just talking last night. And, I was referencing my cousin and her husband last night, and she was saying how badly he wishes we had like a train or a subway, so that he could take that to work, because he's jazzed on the idea of just being able to sit there, nice coat, look at a book, drink a coffee, and wait to get taken to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never thought about that. I was always
Get
like,
something done on the commute as opposed to just
like
sitting in traffic
and listening to Us or something like that. But
shameless plug.
yeah, exactly. So when you went to Austin, I mean, was it anything particular school, or was it more of a trade-based college, or?
It's kind of both. In kind of it's probably like workforce training is probably what they would have called it, or the way that they would have phrased it. But it was kind of a like a really particular niche within this school. It was a program that existed before the school existed. It used to be it was like a group of photographers that were, I think, like photographers from World War II or something, that they started some group association, and then it got absorbed by the school. And one of the things that must have been like the agreement with the school up front was that it was going to be well funded. So we had awesome equipment, awesome facilities, and comparatively, as far as like a education in photography goes, it's pretty killer. And this is a like a junior college or a community college that pretty well surpasses any other photography-based degree program that's out there, because most of them are just kind of like almost like an art history major that, like, when you're in your last year, you're doing a couple of photo specific courses. And this, I was doing 3.5 full years worth of
Do you think that a lot
photo
of
courses.
things, I mean, I don't know how much you dabbled in film. Do you think when they changed from film to digital, that you kind of lost a lot of the curriculum due to the process of developing and understanding? I mean, if anybody's known film, like just the simplicity of digital.
Yeah.
Like when you can run through a whole film of, a certain ISO that's, not compatible to what you need, and it's ruined, or you just take shitty pictures until it's over, and then you swatch, you know what I mean?
It was a lot more of a thoughtful process before.
Yeah.
And I only had one course that even touched on film at all, and it was kind of just an exercise in like, hey, here's how we used to do it. And it just took a lot more like planning and mindset beforehand, and we had Polaroid back, so it would take a full day of setting lighting and getting everything right before you were even thinking about taking a shot, whereas things like digital, you can just fire away and it's all free. But yeah, I mean, there's probably a little bit of as far as like the curriculum goes, no, I don't think anything really changed. I think it just had to like get over that little hurdle. Their facilities had to change for sure, because everything was going from darkroom to like, oh gosh, now this goes straight into a computer, so we need computer labs and not dark rooms. So I wasn't around for that, obviously, but
yeah. So that you also they kind of push you into like Lightroom and other editing programs and stuff like that. And,
yeah, totally. Yeah, all those instructors were whatever their certification is with Adobe and those softwares, but they have to be experts or whatever their terminology is for it. But they I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, whenever I kind of started wanting to take pictures, not professional, but just to kind of have a little bit better quality photo of the things that we do with work and when we go out, traveling on the bikes. And you get stuck in these YouTube rabbit holes, man, like trying to learn how to take pictures of the the galaxy or the Milky Way and stuff.
Yeah.
Then you start seeing photos where there's like, I know how to take a picture of it now, but how the fuck did that happen? And then you go into there, and then they'd show you how they took pictures of it in the daytime, but then, you know, also waited, didn't move the camera until night, got the galaxy in there or something like that.
Blended exposures.
Yeah,
and
there's like all these layers of photos to make one like surreal looking picture, you know, which is it's super cool, but it's also super, you know, for someone that, you know, like I said, the very small amount of photography that I do or been into, it's like, it's real deceiving. Like,
super misleading. Yeah. Your whole life's been a lie.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, where's this place at? You're like, oh shit, it doesn't look like that in real life. You can't see the galaxy in the daytime.
Yeah, and I mean, and that stuff is as hard as it may be to believe for anybody who's ever shot anything on film. They used to do really similar things in darkroom. Like they would blend exposures, and a lot of it was done by hand with guys actually like painting things in, or like literally copying and pasting, but with your hands.
Wow.
Yeah.
They had it so hard.
I know.
20 years ago.
Yeah, stuff took a lot longer, but
I had a friend that used to shoot for one of the first magazines we ever got in. Was a magazine called Super Street Bike. It was all like sport bike stuff.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of photography for books as well. And at the time, we're talking 2006.
Okay.
The magazines obviously wanted digital because they need to, you know, digitally, you know, Photoshop the pages of the magazine. So, you know, they don't want to deal with film. But the books had to all be film that he would shoot for. So when he would go out and do stuff, and I became real good friends with him. He was kind of like my first, what do you call it, inspiration into, you know, just taking pictures, just sitting and talking with this dude. And he was telling me all his stories of taking pictures of the motorcycle industry and things like that. And but yeah, he was just telling me, and then at the time my chick was going to, you know, like Mountain View or something, taking photography classes, but she was doing all film.
Yeah.
And so I got to see and learn a little bit of that, but never darkroom stuff. She did some darkroom stuff, but some cool stuff. You know, there's got to be a cool like satisfaction of like taking a picture and then developing it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, sizing it and all these all these different things you can do. I can imagine that would be cool to still have like the ability to do some actual film and print it out.
Yeah, if I had like the mental fortitude or the space to have a dark room, I think I absolutely would.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Just for that same reason you're talking about. I think just for the process.
Yeah.
Because I would enjoy it.
It's a rewarding thing. You know what I mean? It's I think that with digital, which is awesome because, you know, it's instant, you can really adjust. I mean, think about it. You could have gone out back in the day, and if you didn't do the right planning, you could walk away with nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you can walk away with a bunch of blurry, you know, which I think that I'm not really good. I'm just, you know, grabbing pieces of my memories of how the darkroom stuff works, but there is some adjustments you can make in it, right, when you're developing stuff.
With film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe you could save it.
Yeah, I mean everything's got its, even with digital stuff's got its limits that you can push and pull with, but yeah, there's some wiggle room.
Yeah, I think the hard part, you know, once I just started jumping back into it, I felt like it was going back and playing golf. You know, it's like every time I buy something, I'm like, man, now I want this lens, and now I want this, and so next thing you know, you're like deep into, you know, invested, and then you're like, man, I wish I just bought a full frame instead of this, you know, mid-range camera.
Or you wait 2 more years and the next thing comes out and you think, oh, dang it.
Yeah, the new model.
Yeah, and then your pocket really hurts because you go out and buy that too. Yeah, I know that rabbit hole. So
when you were in the college thing and you got out of that, did they help with job placement, or did they kind of help show you where there's just so many people I'm just like going off of thoughts here, but there's so many people that do or dabble in photography like myself. Like, how do you like hone yourself into a business of it?
Yeah.
You know?
So there wasn't really anything like job placement, and it's kind of hard in a city like Austin too, where people think that it's a lot bigger than it is, but Austin has kind of reached its capacity probably 10 years ago, and it's just they're just still flooding in. But it's a pretty small pond, and there were a lot of big fish that were already there that were pretty well established and kind of had a hold on at least like the the parts of a photo industry that make money in Austin, which there is really kind of like the tech market. So yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of placement, and a lot of people really, I don't think the idea is that most of them, if they were really going to continue to be professional photographers after they left this course, because that was a tangent here, but that was like the other, wasn't necessarily bad, but kind of weird part about it being a junior college or community college is like the first couple of courses. I mean, anybody can take those. So intro to photo or whatever the first couple courses were, I mean, there'd be like bored moms who like just wanted to learn how to use their camera, and like I get that. But yeah, so the people that actually went through the entire course and didn't just do like intro to whatever, I think the idea is that most of them were probably going to spread out to somewhere else anyway. Like once they found kind of the niche that they wanted to be a part of, whether that be commercial or advertising or fashion or, I don't know, shooting weddings or whatever, that maybe that'll push them into maybe it'd push them to school somewhere else. Like there was a really well-known, it was probably like the best school for photography. It was out in Santa Barbara. It's called Brooks Institute of Photography, that closed recently, which sucks for anybody that was there. But I think the idea was people were either going to go to school, so they're somewhere in like Santa Barbara, or they're going to New York or whatever, or they would go and dive into whatever industry, and that would maybe take them to Dallas or Houston, or maybe a little further, and they're going to California, or they're going to Chicago, they're going to New York, they're going to Florida. So wherever they decided to dive into, I think that was kind of the idea. And they equipped pretty well with like, I mean, like one of the entire semesters I had a course that was studio management, that, I mean, it's just pure business of photography. I mean, talking insurance and talking taxes and, I mean, all that kind of crap that I don't think most other, I mean, I'm living in Dallas. I know a lot of people that go or went to UNT and got I guess maybe their degrees in photography, but again, it's kind of like an art history major, that I feel kind of bad for the people that are coming out of that, because it's kind of like getting out of high school and thinking like, oh man, how do I do taxes? You know, like, like what is that? So in that respect, I think it was pretty well prepared, but no, nothing like job placement. And then that's why I ended up coming back to Dallas. It's a much bigger pond, and it was not nearly as saturated. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of photographers here, and a lot of them are really good at what they do. Some of them are really well established and make a ton of money. But that being said, there's still a lot more to go around for everybody else.
There's definitely, comparative as far as space and the size of Dallas-Fort Worth as a whole and all its suburbs and stuff. I mean, it's one of the biggest. I mean, obviously Houston's the biggest, but it's one of the biggest towns, and fuck man, there's so many. I mean, we've survived here. I mean, we don't really do a lot of work for Dallas-Fort Worth anymore. Like, the glorious thing about Instagram and the internet, like most of our work is coming from out of state or out of town now. Which is awesome, but it's also like, can be resentful for me, for the town that I live in, wondering why I can't get the money that I know that I'm worth now from the town that I live in. So I feel, you know what I mean?
No, I hear that for sure.
But it's a big town, and there's lots of opportunity here. Obviously, Californians are moving here by the truckloads, and then a lot of our listener base is California, and they hear me talk about thinking about moving out there, and they're like, well, fuck it. You need to stay there. We're all trying to come to Texas, get rid of the tax. We don't have the taxes that they have out there, the state tax and all that type of stuff. So So what, the things that you take pictures of, I mean, I know that there's the work side and then there's the hobby side.
Yeah.
So what how did you get into that? What is it actually? I know the corporate stuff is where the money's at, so it's not always like, it's the same thing with a lot of facets of art, because I was going to college, or I was on the path to college for architecture.
Okay, cool.
I got a job as a draftsman, and I was able to see that I didn't want to do this by being in that deal. And then, there's like a little bee in here.
Eat him.
Yeah, I'll be ready when he comes back. There's when you're in high school and you're going to school for architecture, you're planning to take that step, and then you do all the drafting and design in high school, and like I said, there's plenty. I know here at the school I went to, there was plenty of programs to help hone the basic skills, so that I was doing draftsman work already, even though that's a 4-year degree. And I realized that in architecture, the only money, unless you have one of the rare dudes that get to make a huge name and design houses. You ever been in the grocery store and seen the books full of floor plans? They're like right there at the checkout aisle, and they'll be right next to People magazine, and there's like a book thick, like a fucking phone book, full of floor plans.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they still do this, but they used to do it all the time. I'm like, you can literally go to the grocery store and just pick a set of plans out of their fucking deal. You call them, mail order, they send you some fucking drafting plans, and then the only thing you gotta do is take that to whatever municipal, like say you're gonna do it in Red Oak, Texas, you go find an architect to mesh this house with this lot.
Yeah.
There's no design, there's not, the industry was just all commercial, so all we were doing in the draftsman office that I was in was Motel 6s and Days Inn, and once again, already plans.
Yeah.
Our job was to take them and make them work with the lot and the city and the ordinances that they had. And I was like, this sucks. There's no design. There's no creativity to this. It's just plugging numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I got the opportunity to see it. Just kind of like, I guess you're able to go down the path and realize that this is the direction you want to go. And, some people do, and they make good livings, and fuck, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
This is also the early days of the internet, so I was sitting in there supposed to be doing this. I'm like rabbit holing down the internet, 2001, you know what I mean? And I'm glad that I realized that I didn't want to do it, because I don't think I'd like myself. All those people that worked there looked like they had no life, and they're just like defeated adults is what I was around.
No, I bet.
So what's the what is this stuff that you take pictures of mainly?
So personal work or for work?
Yeah.
It varies. Some days, so being in a big city like Dallas, it's actually pretty similar to the work that is pretty plentiful, down in Austin, or really wherever. Most of it that comes in is pretty boring, corporate headshots.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a lot of people, and it takes time, and that means more money.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that one of the first things I talked about is my Instagram. If anybody sees my handle or whatever and ends up going, oh no.
Damn phone's linked to my linked to the MacBook. Sorry, people.
Yeah, so if anybody goes and looks at my Instagram, they're like, oh, cool, I want to see what this dude's about. I think my last post is months ago. Months ago. And that's just because it's been all work and no play.
Yeah,
and the stuff that I'm shooting work-wise is just boring.
Yeah.
As far as, people want to see this. Nobody cares about some architect's headshots.
Yeah, exactly.
They're putting that on their website or their whatever, and paying me for it. But
it's so crazy that there is. You would think. Not to kind of ruin your business.
No.
But you would think some dude would be just like, hey man, my wife took intro to photography. She can come take these pictures real quick.
Well, and they totally do.
They do.
Yeah, no, that's totally a thing. And not once you start getting into
the bigger
companies, and stuff that has a little bit more brand image to it, or whatever, that either they may have had the experience before, or Like I had a guy that reached out to me the other day that I had met at something. I was shooting an event for a friend of mine, and there was a guy there that just came up to me because I had a camera in my hand and I was shooting all day, and he was like, "Hey man, so can I ask you a couple questions about photography?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Kind of expecting the like, "What kind of stuff are you using? What's that camera? Yeah. What are your settings?" Just getting ready to be like, "Okay,
here we go.
Let's get you to move on." But he was asking about that. He'd been like, he got a camera and he'd been shooting a little bit and decided he really liked it and thought maybe he wanted to try and make a career out of it. And like, well, how do I do that? And what kind of stuff can you make money shooting?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, there's photos everywhere. You can do anything. So when he reached out to me again just this week, he was talking, he was getting asked by some friends to do like engagement photos or whatever. And that's one of those ones that, like you were saying, somebody just calls up their friend or their aunt or their uncle or whatever, "Hey, you have a camera, right?" And comes out and shoots. Right? Yeah. And a lot of people get burned pretty bad, I think, by that. And some don't. Some just like, oh, dude. I see accounts all the time that are like photo fail blogs almost, that are like like just awful paid work that somebody paid for engagement photos. Or I mean, those are the ones that are super prevalent because, again, right, because somebody pays $200 to have engagement photos done for their uncle came and did it or whatever, and it just absolutely sucks. So he was asking me about that, and it's funny that you bring it up and ask, because there's a lot of that in every part of the industry where somebody wants to save a buck, so they go to the cheap guy, and usually you're getting what you pay for.
Yeah, I mean, that's across the board. I mean, for all the different tradesmen that we talk to, and even what we do, there's always that level of skill which also comes with the level of price tag to it, you know. Which a good friend of mine that we just released his podcast this week, he said it good. He goes, you know, when you can pretty much you charge for your skill level, right?
Yeah,
but,
no, totally.
You know, you also don't want to mislead people to think that they're getting that, like, your level of photography, your level of that eye for it, when, you know, they're basically sitting there trying to take pictures and they got a Pinterest board that they're going down trying to figure out, okay, what's the next pose that's popular for this, and you know what I mean? Like, they're not really invested as much as maybe someone that's a true professional.
Yeah, well, I mean, and some of that too is just like time and experience. Like, you're not just gonna overnight be painting bikes like you do. Like, you didn't just wake up one day and have absolutely killer paint jobs.
Yeah, it was a lot of
because you could. It was a process.
Exactly.
And that's one of those things that, I mean, I'm sure you deal with it too, that, I mean, that's your competition, is the guy who, and not always, but some of the time that guy is your competition, the guy who's starting day one and needs to charge something, or does it for free, which is worse, just to get their own experience, and it just undercuts everything that you're about.
Yeah, it's almost like if you know, I found that, like, not necessarily mentoring, but maybe with people that are coming into the industry, I try to, like, you know, be as helpful as I can, but also, you know, try to steer them away from doing things that are going to be bad for the industry, or B, bad for their own deal. You know what I mean? But you know, a lot of people get impatient, man. They, you know, I can imagine with photography, you know, you invest, you go to Best Buy and you get a fucking, you know, a decent DSLR, and next thing you know, the factory lens that came with it's like, you know, oh, I can do a wedding now. And you have no idea how to shoot
exactly right.
Low light or dark or any of that type of stuff. You don't even have a tripod yet. You know,
just the shot list, or I mean, the things that aren't actually taking a photo. To like, okay, well, I need and again, I don't shoot weddings, but like getting the bride and groom beforehand and getting the bridal party beforehand and getting every single shot that you can during the wedding and when they're cutting the cake and when they're
there's that shit. So I think that, I don't know, I feel like that, if people go down the checklist and, well, these are the photos you wanted, it's not my fault, you're not photogenic. You know what I mean? But no, I think that, you know, when people come into things more humble, and, you know, same thing with the painters that reach out to me all the time, it's like, you know, I feel like when you get to a certain level of your brand yourself, of selling the work that you do, it's you don't really, I don't feel threatened by anybody, even though, you know, there are people that are so much more talented than me. I just feel like I don't look at, you know, business anymore like this is my block, and, you know, if you move in on my block, now we're in competition. I'm like, dude, you know, there's so much fucking food out here. We can all eat. You can live with me if you want. You know what I mean? So it's just it's a different dynamic, and some people get real toxic with that shit. They get so toxic with, you know, trying to, because they get threatened. They feel threatened by someone that's not good. You know what I mean? Nowhere near on your level, and it just dumbs down your work. But, you know, there's still the flip side to it, where you get people that just, they come in like, I'm going to be the big guy. I'm going to try to knock the big guy on the street down, or whatever that old saying is, you know. Pick the biggest guy and hit him in the mouth, or whatever the case is. And that mentality is just arrogant, and it really ruins reputations. It ruins potential business, because I feel like, especially with photography, man, like, what if you're shooting a big event and you know, this kid or this guy coming in might be somebody that, you know, he's confided in you to grow his skills. Now he's at a level where, hey, you know what, I need an extra camera here. I can gig you out a little bit with some of my work, and I think that's a good way to do it. You know?
No, it totally is. And segue, if you will, that's kind of like, well, it's definitely the way that I got my start, but I think it's also probably the best way to go. School or not, I think that's the best way to get into like a serious career in, specifically in my case, photography. But by doing kind of what you're saying of like so I moved back to Dallas, and I started immediately assisting for a guy who was kind of in the end of his career. I think he was just kind of getting burned out, and he ended up retiring, selling all his stuff off. But big time, like TJ Maxx was his last client. He used to shoot JCPenney. He did big catalog stuff, huge warehouse space that, like, to go and work with him for a week was just this huge production of like, if by some chance JCPenney had come to me, Stephen Heger, the new photographer, just moved back to Dallas, hey, can you shoot catalog images for us for our whatever spring collection? I could have said, sure, because I want the job, right?
Yeah.
But not having any idea just how much goes into something like that, getting to work for that guy. And I mean, I didn't even get paid working with him.
Yeah.
He already knew that he was kind of going to step out the door basically when he was done with the last couple jobs that we did. So he paid me in gear, which was even more awesome. Like I probably made out 10 times better getting paid in gear that he was trying to liquidate anyway once he was done than I would have if I had just charged a rate that I didn't even know what an assistant charged in my industry, let alone in Dallas. I mean, because that stuff fluctuates too. But I mean, I don't know if that's something that really crosses over into your industry, but I know like tattoo artists. I mean, that's a huge one. Like that is the business plan, kind of, is you go and you're an apprentice somewhere, and then that's how you learn how to do it. Unless you're just that guy who has really trusting friends and lets you tattoo on them to learn. But we were going somewhere with that question.
No, it's I mean, I try to tell everybody, it's like, you know, there's certain things like, if you can get some type of schooling for your trade, you know, that's going to be beneficial. But I've always felt like, you know, especially this day and age, man, with YouTube and with how much information there is out there, if you're really looking for, if you're doing the work, if you're taking pictures, you're naturally gonna like develop questions of how do I, especially if you're looking at the images you see everywhere.
Yeah.
You're gonna develop the how do I do this? Find the answer. If you can't find the answer, now you have a valid question to ask a professional photographer.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people can go. I mean, I'm outside looking in, so I could be completely wrong, but I feel like there's a lot you can do on your own nowadays. But there's still things like you were talking about. Like once you learn how to get into business, well, how do you be a tax-paying American? How do you do these things that you don't think about when you're trying to be the famous photographer?
Uh-huh.
Those are the kind of things that people overlook, and those are the things that really set, they really can help you out in the long run. I don't know what it is now because I'm not the best at it, but paying, like my cousin, she does hair, rents a booth, does hair, really, really good at it. She was telling me last night she spent like 30-something grand in taxes, which I'm sure is not a lot for certain people in certain industries, but I mean, fuck, dude, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of money.
Just to show the government or show, like, say if you want to go buy a car, you're like, hey, look, I made 30 grand, or I made X amount of dollars. I paid this much in taxes last year, and it's just gone money. It ain't like, you do it every month and, at the end of the year you get to do a tax return.
Yeah.
It's like being in business for yourself is a very different experience that a lot of people enjoy the comforts of working and getting their tax return. And when you do it on your own, it's just not very likely. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So so you come up here, you kind of met with this dude, he kind of helped you, and was he kind of like your introduction of doing the corporate stuff with photography, or?
Sort of. I had done a little bit of work when I was in Austin. You might actually get a kick out of this. So when I was living down there, they opened Circuit of the Americas. Mm-hmm. Right? That was like when the track opened is when I was living there.
I went there the first MotoGP race
really?
I ever did. I checked out. I was there.
Cool. Okay. So I shot MotoGP. I shot Formula One. I shot the most awesome race circuit that I don't know if they do here anymore or not, but it was called, what was it called? V8 Supercars. And it's an Australian circuit. And it's so sick. It's basically like NASCAR stock cars that can turn both ways. And those dudes drive them around like bumper cars. I mean, they're door on door. They're smashing. It's a little bit shorter course. Yeah. But that's like the whole idea is it gets kind of jammed up and it's so awesome. It was the wildest thing to be around. But yeah, that was probably my first introduction to like, and that's not really the corporate environment that people would imagine if I said a corporate environment. But I mean, that's a huge structure. I mean, Formula One, for instance, I mean, there's so much money that goes into that industry that I had no idea of. Formula One isn't like the biggest thing in the United States, I don't think. Yeah. Hopefully it's growing a little bit, but I mean, it's a big deal, and they take every single part of that super seriously. Mm-hmm. So getting kind of the look behind the curtain of how something that big operates and getting to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. That was probably my first real introduction to like a legitimate photo gig that wasn't just like the headshots or engagement portraits or senior portraits or the stuff that can be a little bit more mom and pop. Like your uncle's not going to get a media pass and come in and shoot Formula One. But yeah, so then moved to Dallas and really wanted to get into a commercial photographer's studio. Like that was the environment that I wanted to get into and learn from. So yeah, that first guy was the one that I worked with and
so
got a big education real quick.
When you were going to school for all this stuff, did you start developing an idea for what you really wanted to do? You know what I mean? As far as like the type of photography you were doing? I mean, did you have like a direction like that pushed you like I want to take these type of photos or I want to do this type of stuff?
You know? Yeah, I probably did at the time, and probably as soon as I drive away, I'll kind of it'll flash back of like, oh yeah, that's what I really wanted to do. But it's probably the things I wanted to do then are probably pretty similar to what, like if you said, ooh, dream job, what could you be doing? They'd probably be about the same as what I'd be doing now. And if I could get paid to do the stuff that I do for personal work, that would be my dream job. So anything that you've seen on my Instagram, stuff that I shot of you guys in Arizona, cool locations, cool people, and not necessarily the same stuff all the time. That's actually one thing I really, really enjoy about doing what I do, is even though it's corporate headshots one day and something else the other, that is kind of the appeal, is that it changes. And like we were kind of talking a little bit before this, but I mean, this year I worked the Golden Globes. I worked New York Fashion Week. I've worked for, I don't know if I can say it or not, an airline that you know of. But then also sprinkled in are like the corporate portraits and that kind of stuff. So, the variety is something that I think is really appealing to me. Yeah. But in that same vein, like, yeah, dude, I would love to be, I mean, my personal hobbies are like fly fishing and
I saw you had some pictures of that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, on your Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, and there's incredible photographers in that industry. And I mean, I don't know how old they got into it, or I mean, I'm sure
social media, man. You
I mean, yeah, or even like if it's guys that have been in it before, social media was such a double-edged sword.
Well, I would imagine, like, I mean, obviously there's always an industry within a field of something. So like fly fishing, there's manufacturers of the poles and all the shit you use, and then there's
everywhere. Yeah, photos are everywhere.
Yeah, so they're all. I could imagine there's got to be like an Instagram page that reposts like fishing and those type of things. So
no, there totally is.
That's the good thing about Instagram, but there's also like this inherent hustle that you have to have on there to provide those type of photos, and like your Instagram page is almost like your YouTube for. It's your magazine. Your Instagram is your magazine. So all the photos that you put on there, all the content you put on there is just trying to show people like, hey man, check out my magazine, check out all of my shit, what I do, how I see it. And I mean, Instagram definitely bred a whole bunch of photographers in the world. I mean, I can't imagine.
Everybody is a photographer. Yeah.
And everybody's a model too, right?
Yeah, even worse.
But no, that what you were saying is cool, because I have a good friend, and I wanted to talk to you about the other thing I was talking about, the magazine stuff. But
yeah, sure.
I have a good friend that used to shoot, like he shot my bike that's on the wall right there, and that's when I met him in Arizona once for a bike event, and he shot that, and like I said, I've always kind of befriended a lot of the photographers that would shoot our bikes for magazines. And this one, he was just a cool dude, just easy to talk to. Like, I love this guy to death. And he's from South Dakota, like the Black Hills area. He used to shoot for American Bagger and another company.
Cool.
But the Black Hills, I don't know if you've ever been there. It's beautiful. It's like, take all the motorcycles out of there, because this is where Sturgis is at and stuff. But the fucking place is huge. It's so much history, and it's really beautiful everywhere. I mean, you got a lot of really fascinating land formations and stuff everywhere out there. So he went from, doing the bike gig, taking and shooting bikes and stuff like that. And he started on his own, started dabbling in the hiking and taking, nature photos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then now he's got a job with South Dakota shooting all the nature that they use for promotions through the many things that, of course they need to promote for people for tourism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we're still friends on Instagram and Facebook, and sometimes he takes trips and he'll do stuff that way, but he's totally found a way to take the corporate stuff that he was doing, which he says it's corporate doing these bikes for guys like us. It's our hobby, but for him, he was into bikes but not quite on the level that we are. He was more into photography, And he just started doing the shit on the side, and the photos were good, and he got him to the right people, and now he's got a gig doing the shit he loves.
Yeah.
You know, so it's real inspiring to me, at least. And but I think if you just do the shit you love, and it's hard to, I can imagine it's hard to carve out time. You know.
And it is. And that's one thing that, I mean, we actually even talked about this too, is being in Texas is kind of hard if that's what you want to do. If you want to be in somewhere that's like alpine, I mean, that doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
You know? Or if you want to be on like raging, like if kayaking is something you're really into, like whitewater kayaking.
Yeah, you're not.
I mean, that doesn't exist here.
All we have is tube
Yeah.
rafting with beer and college kids. That's all we have.
Yeah.
Dirty rivers.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is, I totally agree with you. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, even, I mean, in your industry too, it's totally the same thing. Like you have to have a body of work that reflects what you want to, I'll say sell.
Yeah.
But like kind of like the guy that you know, I mean, if he really wanted to do the outdoor stuff, he built a portfolio of work that was that stuff and showed to somebody, and they said, oh, look, hey, you can shoot that. So that's kind of where my personal work comes into play. Like that's a lot of the stuff that I actually send out to ad agencies, and that's what's on my mailers is that kind of stuff. And those are the brands that I reach out to the most, because the stuff here locally, a lot of it falls into my lap.
Yeah.
Luckily,
I feel like to exploit the terrain and the shit that, you know, like we don't have mountains too close to us, you know what I mean? But to exploit all that stuff, you have to be real creative. You have to really dive deep into, you know, how you can capture, you know, the shit that we have around here and make it interesting. I could see that as being a challenge, but also if you're not super, you know, no matter what it is, if you're not interested in it, it's hard to really like find the beauty in it. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, some people that are not from Texas are just jazzed on everything about it. Like, you know, like, oh man, it's so cool here. You know, Dallas is this, or, you know, whether it's a little bit further west, you know, which is still cool to me. But, you know, after going to places that I've been, it's kind of, it seems small to me, even though we're the biggest state down here. It just seems like a small, you know, it's just, it doesn't really move me as much. Now there's parts that's like nice, but if I was taking pictures of nature, like, which I've never really been able to, I did a couple little hiking spots down towards around Austin and stuff, really cool areas, but I just don't have an eye for nature in a way like my buddy does. Like, how do you capture it and make it cooler than what it looks like right now? And I think that's kind of the thing about photography is that you're the guy that I first referenced at the beginning is the first magazine guy I ever talked to. He used to tell me how he goes, man, I know how to make you look way cooler than you really are with a camera. You know, like, and that's true. And I think that's true in all facets of photography. You can make something so simple look so much cooler than it is.
That's a big part of the job a lot of the times, actually.
So, you know, you got to have a little like eye for it, I think. So you got to develop a liking to certain areas to be able to exploit it the way, you know, you're capable of and the things that you like. So
yeah, for sure.
Turning, you know, those the artistic eye onto certain things, I don't know. You, like I said, you can get burnt out on it, you know, and lose inspiration and lose thought, you know. So what's the you know, you said you started doing that, like, didn't you go up to Alaska and stuff like that too?
Yeah.
Like, what was that trip all about?
Yeah, I did.
Y'all drove up there, or did y'all fly, or?
So this is a tough thing too, man, is the big trips that I've done, at least recently, like the one that I met you on was out to Utah and doing, what is it, 5 national parks?
Yeah, they got the coolest parks in the United States.
They're wild. They're awesome. That was a week. I think maybe it was 10 days. That's probably a little long. Probably a week.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was vacation and it was with my sister. So like, if I wanted to be at every single spot at the best time of day, or like to get sunrise here or sunset at this place, or yada, yada, yada. Or, I mean, to even be in one spot, like to be in arches. If I wanted to shoot delicate arch and, I don't know, any turret arch, any of the other ones. If I wanted to shoot both of those and shoot them in their best light, or like really, maybe the weather sucked or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do when you're on a set amount of time, or you're on a set amount of time with other people. I mean, like, their time is factored into it too. Like, it's their vacation. It's not just, you can't just go and free rein it and spend 5 hours doing one thing, where other people's time plays into it a lot. So the trip to Alaska was a family trip. It was actually my parents, their anniversary gift kind of to the whole family was that we did a cruise in Alaska. So I was thinking, okay, well, I can take a little bit of time off before and after it, and maybe I could like shoot some of the spots around there, or maybe I could get there a little early and do something, or I'm trying to plan it all out in my head, and like, how could I make the most of going to some place like Alaska that I'm not going to go to in a long time afterwards, that is not super accessible from Texas, budget wise, and also because it's so freaking far. But so thinking through that whole process, and I was looking up like the dates of when we're going, and this is pretty well in advance. It's probably 6 to 8 months before we actually ended up going on this trip. And the trip itself, the way it was going to work is everybody was going to fly Dallas to Anchorage, and then we were cruising down. So if anybody is listening and looking at a map, we were cruising from Anchorage to Vancouver, Canada. And like a one-way cruise, and then we were going to be in Vancouver, and everybody was flying back. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just drive and go to someplace like Seattle, and then I'll fly Seattle to Anchorage, meet up with everybody, cruise down, be back at my truck, and then I can do another cool road trip or whatever. Because there's a lot to cover on the way from Dallas to Seattle.
Pacific Northwest is...
So then it ended up lining up even better than that. The solar eclipse that everybody was super duper jazzed about, that it was going coast to coast, as far as like there being a spot that there was a total solar eclipse. The day that we landed in Vancouver, so cruise ends, the next day was the eclipse. And the closest spot I could be to get like total solar eclipse was in Oregon. So I ended up driving down, shooting the eclipse after being in Alaska for a week and a half or however long it was, and then continued a road trip on from there. But that trip was really cool. That was solo, at least the road trip portions of it. And I basically drove, the front half was Dallas, kind of up to like Idaho, and then west over to Seattle. Then all the stuff in Alaska sort of fell under that same thing, where it was like, there's a lot of really cool stuff, and I got a lot of really cool photos that I didn't really plan anything, because it was all on like family time and doing what everybody wants to go and do, and excursion this and visit town, whatever, X, Y, Z, that. And just like shot what I could while we were wherever we're at. But then the back half of it too, again, I was solo. Starting in Seattle, went down, did the solar eclipse, which was phenomenal. It was wild. It was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. And then drove all the way down to Huntington Beach, stayed with a friend of mine, and then drove all the way across Huntington Beach to back to Dallas. So,
did you do any of the coastal highway on the way down, or did you just kind of stay on one or five?
You know, dude, I was kind of delirious by the end of that drive. I drove a little bit of both, because they were dealing with forest fires at that point in time.
Yeah.
Even into California, because I remember there was a section of highway I was driving at night, pretty close to Los Angeles, that I like rounded a crest in the highway, and both sides of the highway are on fire.
Yeah.
Just wild. Like,
So, did you remember seeing some of the videos of that?
Yes,
where people
dude.
were driving? It was just like the apocalypse was going on.
yes. Okay. So it wasn't that dramatic, but it was at night.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like you ever drive around Houston at night and you see like all the big oil processing lights from a long way off, and it's just this big glow of light. That's kind of how it was, and I figured like, oh, here's Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And just rounded a big turn, and it was just fire everywhere. But yeah, I mean that trip was fun. It had some time constraint to it too, because there's a lot of driving, and you gotta.
That's a 3-day drive if you're doing it pretty hardcore from Seattle home, right?
Yeah, and I did it in 3 on the way up. Basically 2 on the way back.
So you drove.
But there were stops on the way back. So I was in Oregon for 2 days. Because I was.
Oregon's got a lot of cool shit in there.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. But again, they had forest fires too. So like I again 8 months prior, I had planned this awesome spot I was going to go and hike in and shoot the eclipse, and I Google Earthed it, so I knew exactly where the sun was going to be coming over this mountain range and whatever. I get there and it is totally closed, on fire. So like flying by the seat of my pants, making something work. And it ended up being a lot less about the photo at that point, and it was just cool to be there, and I'm actually kind of glad that it worked out that way.
Yeah.
So spent a couple of days in Oregon. And then again, once I was down in Huntington Beach, I was staying with a friend, and actually an old roommate of mine. I hadn't seen him in a long time, so I stayed there for, I think, 3 days.
Yeah.
But in total, it basically was 2.5 days on the way back. From Huntington Beach to Dallas, I was kind of over it.
Yeah, you're trying to get back.
Yeah, so it was just a grind. I think I drove almost the whole way back in one day.
Yeah, we used to, the first couple of times I drove at that, I would always just like try to get a hotel places. But man, nowadays I'll just pull into a Love's or something and crash in the car for an hour or 2 or 4, depending on how tired I am, and wake up and go.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of, I think that's what that's the van that we got. You know, we plan to kind of within reason kind of deck out the inside and make it like not livable, but just comfortable when we take a trip.
Yeah.
And
oh, that's awesome.
And you know, I've been doing the Monument Valley thing, you know, taking it back to that. I stumbled across that place. Something I always want to check out. You know, I've said it before on this thing, but you know, Forrest Gump, the movie.
I was gonna say it, dude.
I always wanted to see that spot.
It was, yeah.
And it wasn't till Instagram came out that I saw it, that I noticed that this place existed, right? So this was 2 days before we were leaving to go to the Bay Area, which I do that every year, ride bikes up there.
Yeah.
And you know, so we were going to be on 40 and then bam, there it is. So I'm like, well, this is also a big changing point for me of like traveling with motorcycles, because at first it was like get on the main highway and just balls to the wall, get to the destination, right? And that trip that I took when I got off the highway and went up and saw the Four Corners. I think I stayed in Farmington that night before.
Yeah.
And then Four Corners, and then came in and then came down into Arizona. The first time we just stopped through and just checked it out, right? So we just stopped in, checked out the Monument Valley, and I didn't want to leave. Like, you know, the part of it where you're looking at the mountains and you're kind of like on the road?
Yeah, like where you're talking about, like where you camp from?
No. The other side, like you're in Utah looking into.
So I didn't get to see it.
Oh, that's
because
that's
we drove in at night. Yeah. I know.
That's
that
also,
I was really bummed about.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the whole deal, right? Is like time constraint, and it was on mine and my sister's schedule, and it was vacation. It wasn't just like cool photo adventure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one I was bummed about.
Well, see, I did the research when I found out about it, because the short route is, you're on 40, head up, and you can see it, right? But the only way to see it is you got to come north to south.
Yeah, and you got a hook. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you come out of that town, Mountain or Mexican Hat, which is the first town in Utah that you'll come into, you'll come over the hill and then you'll start to see it, and then the road kind of aligns, and then you get that long tunnel vision kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
And there's like a little turnoff where you can kind of stop and just kind of take it in, and we took a bunch of pictures of bikes and took some pictures in the road, and it was cool. But the next year we did the same thing. The guys that I brought hadn't been there before, like the kid Mason. He was he does a lot of photography as well.
Yeah,
and
I know, it's hard.
All those guys.
Hey Mason.
A lot of those guys, they didn't get to see it that way because of my axle problem. So we got there late. It was dark, and then when we got there, it's like I didn't want to take them 40 miles to the other side of the mountain to show them that on a fucked up axle, and then go 40 miles back to the mountain, and then 60 miles. It would have been a 100-mile trip to show them that, and I was just kind of scared as fuck to do that. But
and be the guy that has that idea.
Yeah. But it's so hard to talk about it, but it's just kind of flooring to me, like being there. It's quiet, it's desolate, it's massive, so it's kind of humbling in the same way.
Yeah.
And it feels cool, man. Like you're in a place like that, and it's not overpopulated with tourists. You know what I mean? Like what was it like going to like the other major parks?
Madhouse Circus. It was wild.
Because when you see these pictures of it, when they kind of honey dick you on the fucking place, like showing you what this place is, it's like you look like you're the only one there. But I can imagine with the popularity it's become, it's like
not even close.
It's like a ride at Six Flags. Like
it's really funny. If you've gone to any of those places, because you know what it was like for that guy who's shooting that. Like there's one in particular that was at one of the last national parks. It was Canyonlands, and they have this cool feature. It's called Mesa Arch. It's just like a rock formation arch that. If you're there,
it's the famous one that everybody.
Yeah, you get there at sunrise. Maybe not the one you're thinking of. But if you're there at sunrise, probably at all times of the year, maybe only certain times, it like peeks through under the arch, and it's like I guarantee you've seen at least a photo of it. Granted, you may have seen mine, but there's a ton of them. And I kind of had this idea of like. Okay, well, I looked at what sunrise time was. It was like 5:45 or something. It was pretty early. But I got out there early. It's dark. I'm hiking in with a headlamp and all my shit on my back. Get there, and I'm like an hour early. I want to set up, find a good spot, like do all this in the dark. I'm like the 30th person there. And this thing is not big. I mean, it's kind of big, but as far as like being able to go shoulder to shoulder with other photographers, it's like 35, 40 people.
Wow.
I'm like number 20, 30 to get there. Some of those people are just there to be there. Some are already setting up to shoot it. I like kind of elbow my way in there, get a composition again in the dark that I think is going to be really cool. And then it's just like hordes of people trying to come through. And it's like, dude, this kind of ruins it, man.
Yeah.
Like, I had this grand idea of being the only one there for this kind of magical sunrise, and I'm like shoulder to shoulder with some smelly guy who just got off a tour bus that's doing like a 5-state quick stop tour, and he's like, "Hey, man, can you move out of the way?" And I'm like, "Dude, I was here 4 hours ago," like that kind of stuff. But yeah, a lot of the it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. Being able to see the cool stuff that, kind of like you were saying, like you hadn't seen cool photos of Monument Valley until Instagram or whatever was super big, and 10 people started shooting there, and then 50 people shot there, and then there's 100 people that had the exact same image, but it's super cool, and you want to go, and you see it now, and it's geotagged, and you know how to get there.
Yeah.
It's cool that people are getting to go to those places, myself included. I think it's super cool. Like that's how I find some places. a lot of people want to like keep those places a secret. Like, ooh, we
Like,
kind of talked about stuff like this earlier. Like, ooh, I shot here, but you can't. That kind of mentality, when they probably saw it from somebody else in the first place. But yeah, so it's cool that, one, people want to go out and see those places, and two, are actually going and doing it. But then it kind of sucks when you're there and there's like 1,000 other people in whatever spot. So, it kind of is like Disney World or like Six Flags. I mean, you're almost waiting in a line, like,
I think
get to the ride.
That would kind of ruin it for me, though, and that's, I want to take time and see all those spots, in Utah, because there's so many of them. Hell, you got the Salt Flats in Utah as well, which I totally want to check that out.
Yep.
But, the idea of like pulling up and, you just drove through nothing to get here, and then you get to this spot and it's like a fucking city.
Yeah.
And there's
but it was wild too, because like sunrise happened, right? And everybody's shooting like crazy, trying to get into this thing. I'm half worried that somebody's gonna get pushed off a cliff that we're like right on the edge of. But then 10 minutes past sunrise, like everybody's gone. And it's funny because it was me and one other dude that stuck around, and he was another photographer, and he lives in Utah, and I mean, we're kind of friends now. But like we still talk back and forth, and it was funny because we were the only ones that stayed there, and we were probably there for another hour because it was awesome. It wasn't just like that quick snapshot moment. Okay, let's go get back on the bus. Or whatever.
I get that too, man. Like,
it's still, those places still can have like a cool, genuine moment that isn't just oversaturated with the like, I don't know, the like
tourism,
Instagram lifestyle of it. So yeah, don't let my stories discourage you about going and checking out cool places.
Yeah, I feel like, when I go to those kind of places, which I haven't been to a lot, but the ones I have been to, it's like I just want to pull a hammock out and just chill and just reflect. I don't know, I really don't know the word to describe it, but you don't want to leave. Like the first time I went through Monument Valley, we were on our way to Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Still a long way away. And we got there, and I did not, I was like, man, like, I'm good right here. Like, and this is before we started camping on our trips. So we had to get to Vegas, and, that year was a shit show too on the way to Vegas with bike problems. It's like that highway breeds problems on motorcycles.
Eating up motorcycle parts.
Because, I was on that, I don't have a picture of it in here, but yeah, that bike that's on the wall right there, that was the bike that I had built, and I was riding out there, and my air ride shocks blew on it. Right outside of that town that starts with an H when you go into Arizona. And so that one of the shocks blew, and so I had one shock, so I teed it off so that I'm running on one air shock on the bike, and I have 450 miles to get to Vegas, right? So I had two shocks and one blew.
Yeah.
So I have one shock, so I know what's going to happen, right? So we go all the way. We were planning on going to the Grand Canyon, didn't make it. We passed that up. We're going straight to Flagstaff, getting on 40 and booking it to Vegas. We get to right where that turnout. I don't know if you went through this way, but there's a turnout to go to, the Grand Canyon off that main highway that goes to Flagstaff. And then one of my best friend's bike, his air ride shock blows. So now we got two bikes running on one shock each, and talk about ass being puckered up the whole way. And so we get down the mountain of Flagstaff, and we start coming into some of those desolate towns between Flagstaff and was it Kingsman or something like that.
Yeah.
And then my buddy leaves his key fob, which these bikes have key fobs, so like when those fobs are not by the bike, they won't start anymore. Or they're by it, they'll start and you can leave, but if you drop the keys on the highway and leave, the next spot you go to, it's not coming back on. So he lost his keys on the highway, so we sat at a gas station for 3 hours.
That has got to be the worst design flaw ever. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. He rode on the back of my other buddy's bike back to the highway. They walked up and down it for an hour.
Oh my God.
Ended up having a cop come up and helped him find it, and then the cop brought him back to the deal.
Incredible.
3 hours later, so we have we're super behind schedule. 2 air ride shocks blow. We're not sure if we're gonna make it.
Middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we got a hotel at the Bellagio, which we would stay at every year. And when I tell you that we got there, and we got there at 1 something in the morning, and Twin Peaks was closing at 2, which is right across the strip. That beer there was the fucking best beer I've ever had in my life. It was, dude. It was just like I earned that beer so hard. You know what I mean? And but I mean, not like that. Even though it sucked at the time, and those stories have always been, kind of like they've shaped my past.
Yeah, dude, it's the one that you're gonna tell.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell. Hey, so we went to Cali, and it was smooth sailing, no problems.
We did it. We got there.
But yeah, so there's, I don't know, man. Like with the photography though, you could. I mean, I think it's a pretty cool gig that you got. I mean, shit, you get to go travel no matter what the subject is. It's like you got to go to New York.
Yeah.
You got to go to, do the Globes and all the things, there and in between. It's got to be feeling good. You're still pretty young too, so you got a long career ahead of you.
Yeah, I haven't been doing it for very long, and yeah, it is cool for sure. There is kind of some of those moments while you're doing it, like Fashion Week in New York. It is a beating.
Yeah.
There's a couple days in a row that were beyond 24-hour working days.
Damn.
To where you get a little break, you'd go have 2 hours of sleep, and then you're back on it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, those days you're kind of thinking like, oh man, this sucks. I am ready to be done with this. But then 2 weeks later, it's like, okay, yeah, that was cool. I might do that again.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about it, though, I mean, just on the outside looking in, is that, you might not be into fashion like that, but I mean, just being there saying like, yeah, I was at Fashion Week.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
It's like a experience, basically.
It's super cool. For that reason, especially. And like telling people beforehand or afterwards, is like can I come? Like, can you get an extra pass? It's like, well, no, I am the extra pass. But yeah, it's cool to get access to some of those things. And some of it, I mean, like Golden Globes, for instance, a lot of it was really cool. But a lot of it, like, I'm in a room,
Yeah.
So it's not just like the sickest event of all time, like people imagine it to be. Same with things like Fashion Week. Like, I'm backstage at something, kind of seeing what's going on, and I'll see more of, like, for that gig, I was a photo editor for another photographer, so I wouldn't even see what happened at any of the shows until it was done.
Yeah.
Or 20 minutes later when I got cards from him or whatever. So it is definitely super cool to be there. But it's also not exactly what everybody's imagining.
Usually it's not.
But yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, I haven't been to New York yet. That's one of the next places on the list of traveling to. But I found that I like to travel on motorcycle more than car. Like, the car thing is good for me and my wife and stuff like that. But coming around the mountain or coming around through a town on a motorcycle is just it's a surreal experience. Like, this, I don't know where I heard this from, but this guy was telling me about all the times he's been to Egypt. Like, he's seen the pyramids hundreds of times. Like, he's that lucky guy that he's been there so many times, right?
Yeah.
But he said that, when you fly into Egypt and you jump in a cab or you jump in like a tourism bus and you go check out the pyramids, you feel like herded cattle going to see, or you feel like you're in a school bus and you're going to the zoo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he said that he rode through Africa, and he said when he saw the pyramids when he was coming over the fucking mountains and he saw them, it was a surreal experience as opposed to being farmed over there or shipped over there. You know what I mean? And
yeah, you kind of get to like discover it a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's this like a different type of ownership that you feel like is more personal to you than like. Like I said, like flying somewhere, or nothing, not that there's anything wrong with that, but flying somewhere and jumping in a tourism type thing or whatever the case may be, just, it seems a little not quite as genuine as like if you explored it, or like you just said, like you found it on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, that way you kind of get the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
which can be cool. I mean,
it's still a good experience.
If you're going to a place that you've never been before, but maybe you can go back to,
yeah,
or you have no idea if you'd ever want to go back to, that can be a really cool way to see in just a quick snapshot. Like let's continue talking about Egypt. Like you can see the pyramids, you can see the Sphinx, and you can see all the cool stuff, and then you can decide like, okay, if I come back, I want to spend 3 days doing this one thing, or, what that one thing was kind of played out, or it was way too touristy, or what you see on a postcard is exactly what it looks like, and the rest of it sucks. It can be cool for that. I mean, like I was in Ireland and did that very same thing, like was on the bus. And got to see a lot of cool places. And I definitely know the places I would go back to and spend time. I definitely know the places I probably would skip because I saw enough when I was the 30-minute quick stop off the bus. So, there's merit to it, but I totally agree with you. I'm a lot more about the
discovery of it.
Kind of the discovery of it, and also like the ability to like dive in a little bit.
Yeah, if you want to, and not feel like you're under time constraints with everybody else.
Yeah,
it's like I said, we do our trip to San Francisco every year, and I mean, fortunately, every year there's been a new person or a new group that's gone with me, and sometimes the people that have gone have been to San Francisco, and sometimes they haven't. But I found that the way I like to show people San Francisco is kind of like sneaking around to the backside and then bringing them in through the mountains. So that like everything just kind of appears, as opposed to like if you come through Oakland where you see it all. Like you see it and you're getting closer and closer and closer. But if you go like a little north and you come across the bay there and then you come down the 101 and you go through this tunnel, right? You can kind of see things, but then you go through this tunnel and then boom. It's like a city pops out of nowhere and the fucking bridge is like right there. You feel like you can touch it, and then you can turn off right there. And every year we take a picture right there on top of the area where you can see the bridge. But to me, that I didn't get to see it that way for the first time. But when I did see it that way, it was like, whoa, this is the way to see it. This is the way to come into this town. Even if you've already seen it, that's still the way to come into this town. Like if I live there, I'd probably take that route just to go to San Francisco every time, because every time I do, I'm floored by the like how big everything is, but how small it seems. It's a crazy dynamic, right?
You get that cool reveal. And
It's really awesome, and I don't know a whole lot of other places that I've been that kind of shows it that way, But I love it, man. It's kind of like when probably the route you came into LA was coming through the Grapevine from 5 south. Or did you were you on the 101 coming down?
I think at that point I was probably on Highway 1. I don't know. It was also nighttime, which kind of sucked. But getting pushed around by forest fires and being 12 hours deep into a drive, I was kind of just like, whatever. I mean, just Google, get me there.
But yeah, there's I don't know, like I feel like I've become like a tour guide, like I want.
It's not a bad way to be, dude.
Yeah, you're on my bus now. I want to show you this my way, But no, there's a lot of cool things about travel, man. Like it's been one of those deals that I've been talking with a lot of friends. We had a long conversation about it last night about how I'm not super jazzed on buying a house and locking myself down any more than I already am, because man. There's part of me that there's this real hippie-ish rebel side of me that just wants to jump in that van and put a trailer on the back and take my bike and just travel from city to city and kind of gypsy it up, you know what I mean? And then there's this other part of me that like, because I'm getting old as fuck now, and it's like I want a peaceful house in the middle of somewhere. Like I want it to be in the middle of nowhere, but buy everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like an oasis in the city or some shit, that way I have all the amenities that I want to, have. But, I think about just this nice fucking house with a porch all the way around it and a fucking just chill relaxing vibe, but that it's a tough thing, man. It's kind of like the older I get and the more exposure to different ways of life and different cultures and different everything, it's hard to like be like, well, this is what I want. When it's kind of like you want it all, like you want to experience it all in some kind of weird way. And I want to experience owning a house, but at the same time, I don't want to do it now. I mean, I'm 35 now. I don't want to do it now. And then I just got into my travel phase of my life where, if I buy a house, then that's going to limit that to where I can't afford to do that anymore, or, whatever the case may be. And, so it's kind of a scary thing. It's a travel. It's a travel. Yeah. Travel's the way I want to do it.
Do
man.
the travel.
The goal for me is, I want to do, my biggest goal is 40. In 5 years, my goal is to have life together-ish to where I can afford to ride bikes across other continents. That's what I want to do. Like that's the thing I really like. It's a new thought. It's a new thing that came to me through some people I met. So through some podcasts I listened to, it kind of inspired me to want to do that. But it's the same thing like that Egypt story. It's like, I want to see these amazing things in the world. You know what I mean? And I want to see them on the back of a motorcycle and not through a tour bus or a tour train or whatever. Like I want to go travel Europe, but I want to do it on a bike at my time. Yeah. On my time, and I want to see what I want to see and stay where I want to stay for the time I want to be there. And there's a lot of logistics to that kind of stuff because Europe is what maybe the size of the United States, maybe a little bit smaller, but it's 100 countries as opposed to here where we can just cross borders. Yeah. There, it's a process to go from one to the next.
There's a lot of fuss.
But yeah, so I don't know, man. What's the plan for you with photography? Like, where do you want to like ultimately take it as far as like in a perfect world that you control 100%?
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I ask that about every day. Like I bounce back and forth between, okay, I've got a job that I'm doing, so I don't think about it. Mm-hmm. And then I think, okay, nothing on the schedule. What do I want to try and get? Mm-hmm. And it changes. A lot of it is like outdoorsy kind of stuff, or a lot of it maybe chasing some like big client that is in the city or in a city. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've got the same kind of things that you're about. Like do I want to save money for trips and travel and experiences, or do I want to spend it on rent or wherever, So I don't have a good answer for it. I'm
figuring it out
by the seat of my pants. It evolves just about every week. It's something new and something different.
Well, you said earlier that you like to do the fly fishing thing, which is got to be therapeutic in its own form or fashion. I heard is it a hard way to fish, or is it just more technical? Or
it's not hard. It's a type of fishing that definitely is kind of pretentious. It's kind of like the golf of fishing. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
That dude, you can go play golf. Granted, maybe they won't let you on the course, but you could go play golf in any get up you want with any set of clubs, and you might suck at it, but it may still be fun. Yeah. Like you may be doing it totally wrong with the wrong clubs and
the wrong shit.
I mean, but yeah, you could still have fun at it. So it's kind of the same way. It's
where the hell do you fly fish in Dallas? You gotta go.
So in Dallas, there, you'll think I'm some like trash monster. There isn't a place in Dallas really, unless you're going like fly fishing on a lake, which I don't really care for so much. But like drainage and that kind of stuff. Just fishing for like small bass is kind of an adventure, and that's like half the fun of like trying to find some like city water, creek, whatever that's got fish in it that, like at the same time has like syringes and that nasty shit, and that's like where
used condoms,
where AIDS comes from. The adventure is probably more the fun of that than the fishing is, because a lot of times there isn't much fish. But Yeah, there isn't much around Dallas as far as legitimate fly
Yeah.
fishing goes.
But I mean, like I think it's cool how you did try to, you did take pictures of some of the stuff. I saw some reels and some other things. You took pictures for some reel companies, didn't you?
Yeah, so I just reached out and met the guy who was,
For real?
I think he was on Kickstarter at the time. Like, real, small time. I don't want to I don't want him to listen to this by any chance and like get offended, but like no name at the time,
Mm-hmm.
startup,
Yeah.
and had a cool product. And I was like, hey man, I'm going to be coming through Albuquerque, New Mexico, because I was already there. That's where he lives.
Mm-hmm.
You want to meet up, and I'd love to meet you, see your reels, shoot your reels, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of like a building the groundwork of maybe I can shoot with this guy later on. If his stuff takes off, maybe I can work with him some. Which he has taken off, but he's kind of riding the Instagram train, which, I mean, I can't blame him. If you can repost stuff and have it be cheaper or for free, I say go for it. But at the same time, it's like, dude, hire me.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, ended up, I met that guy, shot with him some. He still uses it, which is funny. Like, I probably gave him, I don't know, 20 images and maybe 20 images. And he still uses them. This was like years ago now. But yeah, just kind of expected to like shake his hand and be like, "Oh, cool, man, nice to meet you."
20 years?
Or, no, just like 2 years.
2 years. I was going to say 20. Wait,
no,
hold on.
I was not 6 years old. But yeah, ended up being a super cool dude, and like wouldn't accept me leaving with a handshake, and gave me a $400 reel just for like being there shooting. I was like, dude, this is rad. You don't need to do that. But then took that and went and shot with it. Just like, again, just personal fishing trips, and stopped whatever, took a break for lunch, or maybe the fish weren't biting, so like decided it was time for fake fishing photos,
Yeah, the posing ones.
Yeah, I mean, totally, because like I'm gonna go on a fishing trip, and if it's my own personal trip, I'm not gonna just shoot during it. Like I want to fish.
Yeah.
And that goes for a lot of my travel too. Like a lot of the time, I don't want to just shoot stuff all the time. I want to get out and hike or climb or do whatever. Experience it without like looking through a camera.
Yeah.
Unless that's like the intent beforehand, and then I'm stoked about it. Then I'll go out and I'll spend all day behind a camera.
You kind of mentioned something that I also forgot about, a conversation with my friend from South Dakota.
What's up?
About how, when you're planning these trips and stuff, you really gotta, it's not just, you get there when you get there. Like, to get the photo that you really want, you have to plan with, sunrise, sunset, location, view. Like, there's so much that goes into thought just to get an image, And do you think it's probably the same amount of thought you'd have to put into corporate style stuff, or is it more like a click and shoot type thing? Or you're just loading up that memory card kind of.
Some of it, some does kind of play in, and a lot of it is just kind of out of my hands a lot of the time. Like locations, for instance. And I'm not going to be able to get 50 people to go to some place of my choosing, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm usually making a lobby work. And oftentimes making a lobby work in like 5 different ways. So it's not just every single person with the exact same photo.
Yeah.
And then things like time of day, usually I don't get to dictate, so I've got to make everything look congruent for 50 people, but it takes all day, and we might be shooting next to a giant wall of windows, and the sun may be like in and out from clouds, or I don't know, maybe we started early and then it's midday, and stuff like that changes, and you just kind of have to roll with it. So a lot of that can't really be, I mean, you can plan to roll with it.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, like, you can't plan for ahead of time. Except to just plan to be flexible. So yeah, on that side of corporate, it is kind of just roll with it. The other side is totally planned. like if I'm shooting for a product, for instance, or I mean, like if Harley Davidson calls me up, which is not going to happen, but they say, hey, we've got this new bike, we need advertisement for this bike. Well, they're going to do it in a couple of different ways. They're going to shoot some stuff that's a little bit more under like an umbrella of catalog photography, which imagine like being in a studio, shooting on white, shooting on black. It's just the bike, nothing else.
Yeah.
And then maybe they dive in and get like detailed shots of this, that, and the other parts of the bike. But that kind of stuff, you're totally in control. You have all your light set the way that you want. You're running the show. It doesn't matter what it's like outside. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. But also a lot of that, not a lot of it, all of that has to be planned beforehand to work efficiently or to ever get a job again. Like if somebody shows up and they have something they need shot and then you're trying to figure out how to shoot it. So test shots and things like that happen beforehand with either a stand-in or whatever. But then the other side of their advertisement is like, okay, now we need somebody on this bike and we need to sell the lifestyle of it, not just the bike.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, that's what sells it. You know, and that's for any product. And that's the kind of stuff, really to answer your question from earlier, like what, if I could shoot anything I wanted to, it wouldn't necessarily be this product or that industry or anything that specific, but shooting things based around their lifestyle. And that is a type of photography. It's a big umbrella again, but lifestyle photography is like selling the idea, the experience, the
culture of it.
Yeah, I mean, like every part of it that makes somebody look at an image and say, ooh, yeah, I want that, you know? And a lot of that, like there's a lot of pressure, not pressure, there's a lot of ability in the photographer's hands in that case to like really knock it out of the park, because maybe the bike sucks, you know, or maybe it's ugly, or like, I mean, any number of factors. But if it freaking looks cool when somebody's riding it, or if it just looks fun to be on, like maybe it doesn't perform well. Yeah. But, or like maybe like sport bikes, right? And you've got awesome photos of it at some track like Circuit of the Americas, and it just looks absolutely killer. Before we started the podcast, I was looking at Motor Trend. Right now, their photo is the new ZR1 Corvette that looks killer, and I want it. But I've seen one image, and I know nothing about it.
That one image sold you,
right? Yeah. And it was just because it was an awesome image, and it was, I don't even know what racetrack it was at, but I mean, it just looked killer, right? Yeah. Like paint was on, the body styling, everything looked cool, but like, I don't know, dude, they could have pushed it down the track for all I know. It may not even run. It could be a total concept, but in my mind, that thing is a blistering fast rocket ship. Yeah. And I want it. And some other photographer could have shot it and made it look like crap, and I would have said, no. Yeah. They messed it up. This new Corvette, that thing sucks. Yeah. You know.
Fuck that thing.
Yeah. So, like dream. Ooh, what could I shoot if I could shoot something every day or every job? Is what would I want to shoot? It would be maybe industries that I'm interested in would be a bonus. Yeah. But I mean, like that's not always the case. I like getting to kind of dive into other people's industries and then sell that lifestyle.
That's right on point with the way I feel like the only way to be an effective like marketing type person is you have to understand the industry and you have to understand the culture and understand the people of it. Oh yeah. And what you're saying right there is 100% on point to be authentic, to build or create something authentic like that. You got to have like that. Like truth, you know what I mean? Like and I think that when you're like, say if I said, hey, like the shots you did of us on the bikes, they were cool, you know, but I imagine like if you had a little bit of time to kind of like research or just come hang out or whatever, you're like the ideas are gonna just start popping and going. Oh, totally. And you know, and that's kind of a cool thing about like a true photographer or artist in that fact that you can find the beauty in all these different types of things that, you know, is kind of invisible to a lot of us, and then we see it, and then it's the same thing like you said about that Corvette. We see images of certain bikes online, some guy who, you know, scruffy looking dude and some skinny witch looking chick on the back, you know, that they're all in the chopper hippie stuff, and but it looks fucking cool, you know. And then you see them,
and you want it.
Yeah, and all of a sudden now these people are fucking like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. You see them at a chopper event, like, y'all are those ones on that bike, right? And, you know, that's what's cool about the photography, is being able to sell so much everything with it, you know. And the culture now with motorcycles, I think that, like, it's breeding a lot of people into photography. It really is, because, you know, with all the camping and the traveling and the bike, there's just so much shit that's photogenic. It really is. I mean, the locations, the parties, the people are, you know, very, I guess the word's eccentric, or I don't know. They're just wild looking folks, you know what I'm saying? A lot different than suits and ties and that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, it's more photogenic, you know, the whole culture of motorcycles are. And then they breed a type of freedom, and they breed a type of lifestyle that, you know, middle-aged men always end up jumping to, because, like we were talking about earlier, they did the family, they did this, they got trapped in life, and then that bike is like, you know, middle finger to the, you know, all the people at home that are being an asshole to them, or corporate America, whatever the case may be. And, you know, Harley, I mean, you brought up Harley, and, you know, they kind of dropped the ball this last year, you know, with their marketing, in a lot of people's opinion, you know. Not that we're qualified to, you know, we're not really qualified to, I guess, I mean, I'd say we are to have an opinion, because we're the enthusiasts that ride them. Totally. But
I mean, you're the customer.
Yeah.
You're the guy they're selling to.
I've always had this concept, and it's in line with what you were just saying, is that I'm not, like, afraid to say that I saw a dude riding a bike and it made me want a bike, or I saw a dude dressed a certain way on a bike, looked cool as fuck, and now I wear those shoes. You know what I mean? That shit happens, and you know, the marketing aspect of photography, and, you know, is it can really, you know, it could steer things in certain directions, and I feel like Harley just didn't use that this last year. They released a whole lot of new models. They got rid of a lot of older ones. The older models were the ones that the younger generation was on. But, you know, their argument now is, how do we get young people on Harleys? I'm like, you had them on Harleys. You got rid of the platform, and you came out with another platform that, you know, a long story short, it just wasn't a desirable name of a bike, right? And then if they would have just came out and made, you know, did some real, you know, lifestyle-based photography or videos, or just media on this type of bike, it probably would have had it would have resonated a lot better with the younger generation. Yeah. Because some people, they can't look at that studio picture with the white background and, you know, all that stuff, and see a bike and envision themselves riding it. But totally. Like you said, if you can capture that thing in a way that shows them what they could possibly, like you described the Corvette, like, man, that looks like the kind of bike I pull up to and everybody's going to look at, or that I feel like that's going to give me the jolt of energy or life that I want, you know? Yeah. And they just didn't do it, man, and it's sad. But it's sad for them and good for us, because, you know, while they got, you know, all these people that probably don't ride bikes running their marketing and all this type of stuff, they just, you know, there's guys like us who every day we sit there and look at bikes, and how can we show the world this bike? You know, how can we show them our work that we do on the bike, or why you should get it from us, or whatever the case may be. And you know, they just need to go back to school and learn that shit, or pay attention to the industry.
Go buy one of the bikes that they're trying to sell.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, man. Like the lifestyle of it, you know, being able to capture that and exploit it. You know, even though exploit's not a fun word to use, but to show everybody.
Well, and that's kind of a line that has to be written a lot of times too. Is there's an aspect that, like, you want to try and sell something, right? But then as the photographer, you also want to be genuine about it. At least I want to be genuine about it. that may not be the intent of the client, for instance. Like, I don't know, maybe, I don't want to pick on Harley, but maybe Harley's bike just absolutely sucked. And maybe they knew it, maybe they didn't, whatever. But now they got to make it look cool. So then that's starting to get into the disingenuous territory where it's like, you're kind of selling me like a flat out lie. But as a photographer's job, like, well, that's what you're being hired to do sometimes. So that can be hard. And I think a lot of people can see through a lot of that bullshit now, just because they're fed content constantly that you kind of get a radar, at least I do, for like, that's probably not super genuine, or that's a little bit like putting on a show to sell the whatever. And then the ones that are more genuine have kind of like an energy about them that you can tell is a little bit more for real. Or, I mean, especially, still photos are hard because you get the right person, they can look like they're loving whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
When you start getting into like the video side of things, then, I mean, you can tell when somebody is just stoked about something.
Yeah.
Real quick. Body language, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they either like it or they don't, and it's pretty hard to fake it. So yeah, that part can be tough. Trying to sell something that is a little disingenuous, that you kind of feel like you're selling the lie a little bit, but it doesn't happen nearly as often as I'm sure it used to.
With you had talked about Mason, and Mason, good friend of mine. He, I kind of met him at a bike event, and then we rode across the country together and stuff like that. He's, talented photographer in my opinion. Young in it, obviously, but in our culture, in the motorcycle scene, it's like 1 out of every 5 dudes has a fairly decent camera, right? And so I feel like, and I could be speaking out of context with him, but I feel like what he was telling me is he's had a hard time finding ways of making money with his photography within the motorcycle scene, right? Because whether it's because it's so saturated or whatever the case may be, but I can imagine it's being hard because, there doesn't seem to be a huge market for buying photos that are lifestyle-based photos, as opposed to, unless it's specific to the brand.
Yeah. Unless you're hired to do that specifically. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, dude, starting from zero is hard anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. It's helpful when you can have like a specific niche that you want to get into. Like, I mean, Mason, I know we're using it as an example, but like motorcycle specific. I mean, that dude's photos are freaking awesome. And a lot of it is the lifestyle. Like a lot of the stuff that I see when he posts it is being at an event. And I mean, dude if he just said bike show XYZ wherever, doesn't even need to show a bike, and just shows the people being totally stoked out of their minds, having a good time. I mean, he's selling something there.
Yeah.
And he's not being hired by anybody, I'm sure, for a lot of that stuff that is like more the environment of what's there. But that's still, I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier. If like there's got to be a body of work before anyone's going to hire you for anything. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say, is like he uses the culture that he loves to sell to people. Like the last time he was up here, he put his van out front here. He was sleeping out front of the house. He was telling me that he had to be back in Houston because he was shooting for a tequila company or something like that. Cool. Like he was, doing the corporate stuff, but possibly it was having that body of work, like you said, to be able to show them like, hey, I do know how to take pictures. I haven't quite took pictures of your subject yet, but I'm sure that I could dive into it and find the right angles and find the right.
Yeah. And a lot of that, I mean, it just boils down to the client, dude. Like sometimes people are willing to take, I mean, maybe you've never shot what somebody is looking to hire a photographer for, but they may still hire you anyway based on the other stuff that you've shot. Like maybe they just like the style that you're shooting in, or they like your overall aesthetic, or they like the like your color palette that you use, or they just like something about. I mean, dude, I hear people's stories about being hired. Sort of a tangent here. A lot of photographers' websites, mine included, there's like the commercial work or the paid work, and then there's the personal work. And I hear stories all the time about people that are hired for a job that has nothing to do with their personal work, but based on their personal work. Because somebody saw it and thought they really liked something about that. Maybe that struck up a conversation. They got to know the person and just hired them because they liked them, or hired them because they're confident that their ability is there to do the job that really has nothing to do with it. So that's a hard part. I mean, every single client is totally different.
Have you done a lot of like model photoing, like with women and model type stuff, or has that ever been something you're interested in? Or
Me personally?
yeah,
no, not in a lot of my own personal work. Just because I don't really have I feel like I have to have like an end goal in mind, where like I either want to shoot for a clothing brand, so like I need to do a test shoot with a model or something, or I mean, I don't know, whatever the case may be, where like I'm not interested in just being like a glamour or whatever photographer, to where like, yeah, I could just call up any I mean, like I've got ad agencies' phone numbers, or not ad agencies, modeling agencies' phone numbers. They have new models all the time that need photos because they need to build that body of work that I've been talking about. That they may have something in mind that they want to shoot. I may have something in mind, and then there can be kind of like a trade work. Like, okay, yeah, let's do a little bit of something that'll help me out. Let's do a little bit of something that'll help you out. Like maybe they want to build an athletic body of work, but I want to shoot something that is like, I just need a model with like some jewelry on them or something. Yeah. But again, that stuff hadn't really come up in my. Yeah. And what is not just, it's really, it comes down to like clients that I'm after. Yeah. It just hadn't come up.
I would feel like it'd be kind of hard to barter that situation. Like, you know,
it's not as hard as you think.
It isn't, because I mean, of course you just brought a real professional side of modeling. I'm associated to all those fucking chicks on Instagram.
Instagram models?
Yeah. That, you know, that, and then even like photographers, you know, because like I said, with the airbrush work, I don't do as much airbrush work as I used to, but I used to, you know, follow Suicide Girls and all these different types of things because, you know, when somebody would come in and they want chicks on their bike, then I need to, like, I don't just draw these girls up out of the thin air. Like, I need references. Photos, yeah. And, so you get, and then, you know, you're like, you know, like, okay, I could follow this girl, or I can follow this photographer who takes pictures of all these different girls. So I'll see a bigger variety of like images that I could possibly steal, I guess you'd say. Yeah. To do it, to use for the, you know, the airbrush work. But, you know, and then I start following them, and then like they're, you know, just through the course of looking at their Instagram, when it pops up, like, hey, I'm gonna be in Dallas tonight, and blah blah blah, and shooting. If anybody wants to book with me, blah blah blah. And next thing you know, there's like fucking tons of like chicks that are trying to be, you know, Insta models or whatever the case may be, just flocking. Yeah. You know, and then there's the lucid picture of him with her half naked afterwards, like using to sell more fucking photos. It's just a crazy like breed of like. I'm not saying that they're not quality or that it, you know, the content is just not as super. It doesn't move me like I would want photography. I just like, oh, she's got a nice ass. And that's kind of what that is.
There's a lot of that, and I think there probably will always be that, and there definitely always has been that. I mean, dude, there's always a guy out there that just wants to pick up a camera because he thinks it's going to get a girl's clothes off. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I follow a couple of dudes that it may not be sleazy, might not be the right word, but may not be as sleazy as some of that stuff. but starts borderline getting there,
Mm-hmm.
and the dude's work is still awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll look at like some of his Instagram stories and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such a freaking douchebag. But his work's great. So I like his work, and it's a lot more like portrait focused. And then sometimes he'll throw one in that's like a little bit of lingerie, slutty, whatever, McGee. And then he'll get back to like just awesome, beautiful portraits. And then his Instagram story will be something like, hey, look at my banging house party or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh man, you suck.
Yeah, so I feel like, when you would want to like use a model or find somebody to, like say if it was taking a bike, like those two chicks right there behind you, first off, in person, they're fucking ugly. They were rough to look at, but somebody photoshopped the fuck out of those girls and they don't look that too bad right there. But, just, I can't remember the story behind that, when we were there and they were shooting the pictures, but I don't remember if those girls were, paid or if they just volunteered or they needed like you said, they needed the work. So they were, trade for trade. But there's a lot of that in the motorcycle industry. Like there's a lot of like, I'm the guy with exposure. You're the guy with camera. I need help. You need help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it becomes a fine line of like, you want to support people around you, but unfortunately, like some of us, like myself included, like I live, bike to bike, check to check, basically for me. So I don't have an advertising budget that's $500 a month or $10,000 a month to be like, hey buddy, come take pictures and I'll fucking here's $500. Like that's a well thought out. And then you add the factor in that in some form or fashion I'm an artist in some way. And that I'm very critical on how people perceive our brand.
Yeah.
So, it's like that $500 and I might not be thrilled by the photos. That's a scary thing for me. You know what I mean? As opposed to, I know that, anybody with a photography background, they're going to be able to get some good shots, but
maybe.
Is it $500 or is it $1,000 or whatever the cost is? Is it going to be, am I going to be stoked to hand you that money? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like if you were having wedding photos, like you're kind of in the same boat where you're like, you got all these plans and ideas that you want to capture. You're paying the photographer for the time and X amount of edited photos. And then, you're $1,500 in, or, on us, we had a cheaper, she was $1,500. She did a good job, but it's just kind of weird, sometimes, and if it was motorcycle, if she was like coming to take pictures of bikes, and she took pictures of our bikes, I know that by putting her out there, she's going to gain something. And plus, I know a lot of magazines, which I don't really think that people get paid very well off these magazines. Like they have to.
It depends on the magazine. Depends on like the frequency of work you do with them, or.
One of the guys that was telling me that like they do.
Because some magazines they just don't have any money. I mean that's a thing for sure.
But I guess there's something cool about knowing, like, fuck, man, I took a picture of a bike or of this, and it's on the cover of a magazine, regardless of whether it was a paycheck.
The tagline with your name or the photo by or your name in the back of it or in the front of it. I mean, exposure does mean something.
Yeah.
Granted, it's got to be somewhere where it means something. Like if you're in whatever crap rag that nobody reads, and then it's not worth your time. If it's not worth your time if you're not getting paid for it. Sometimes it's not worth your time if you are getting paid for it.
Yeah.
That's my mindset at least. Like there's some jobs that it may pay well, but like, man, I do not want to do that again.
Yeah.
Sometimes I could even have the like identical jobs, but with different clients. And maybe I'm not interested in anything that they do at all. But if one client's fun to work with and the other one sucks, I'd really like to work with the one that's fun again, even though I don't like anything about what they do or I don't care about it or, I mean, whatever. That one that I didn't like them and I don't care about what they do, oh, dude. Like, keep your money almost. Like, I wish I could roll back time. Like, it's just a waste of my time.
I feel like with the magazine stuff now, with it's more like you just want to get it in the magazine so that you can post it on your website or on social media just to show, hey, look, I got it in a magazine. It's not like nobody ever buys a magazine or anything. But yeah, there's an allure to it. There's a I told a guy last night, I was like, man, I had to do a lot of crackhead shit to get where I'm at. I had to do a lot of things that I wouldn't even consider talking about for the price or lack of price that I charged to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and but you know, like I said, I spent 10 years of my life building my craft and building my clients and building my just overall, like, what I'm going to be, you know what I mean? And so, man, there was a lot of shit I did for nothing. There was a lot of things I did for money that was, like you said, it was not, I don't ever want to do it again, you know, but, you know, I had to do that stuff. And so many people were you know, it's a double-edged sword because I get it. Like, you know, if you're good at what you do, you should get paid for it. But you also, like, say, for instance, the type of bikes that we paint now, which is not mainly these baggers, they're the smaller bikes, like what the other, pretty much what we were all riding when you met us. Those other bikes, those are different than like these. This is a brand new, you know, way different ballpark. Those other ones, for me to get my name in that industry, I had to do a lot of paint jobs on those bikes for fucking crackhead prices.
Yeah, I bet.
It wasn't that I didn't know how to do it. It's just that those guys wanted to see my work on those bikes. So I'm not going to be able to get them to pay the price that I'm used to getting the work without having the work in my pocket. So,
but you also wanted into that industry.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of the same thing I touched on it earlier with the fly fishing. I mean,
exactly.
like I shot for that dude with no intention at all of being compensated in any way except to just meet the guy.
Yeah.
And I liked what he was about. I kind of figured he's on Kickstarter. He probably doesn't have any money to pay for any of this. But I liked the dude. I wanted photos of it. He needed photos of it. I'm there, out of state, just by chance, shooting. I was at the Albuquerque Balloon Festival, which is killer. You need to go.
Don't they do it in Santa Fe, or is it right in between, like Albuquerque and Santa Fe?
It's like right out. It may actually be within city limits, but it's in Albuquerque.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they probably do one in Santa Fe anyway. But yeah, like no intention of getting paid whatsoever. But like that, I don't have my foot in the door by any means, but that is the very tippy toe of getting my foot in the door of anything related to that industry at all. And yeah, it was totally for free because I wanted to. So
it's a fine line.
It is a fine line, and it's something that's totally different for every situation, every person. And there's totally stuff that is not worth doing for free, and there's some stuff that people do for free for too long with some expectation that it's going to pay out for them. And people decide like, dude, this fool's a sucker, man. He's giving me all this stuff for free. Yeah. And it's not going to go anywhere for him. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's working with a company that has real character and real, you know, that like say for instance, you know, if someone was doing something like that for me, or if I was doing it for them, at some point, once that company started to benefit off what I was giving them, I would expect that they would start realizing or saying, hey, man, you helped us get here. So, and now we're in a position to help you.
For sure. And I think that happens a lot.
And it's just about being a stand-up business person and knowing who helped you get there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and kicking them back where you know you can. Like, maybe might not be like, hey, dude, you helped us get here and we started getting all this exposure now and now we're making money. Well, we're kind of like still... We're doing good, but, you know, it's still not like I don't have $1,000 I can kick you. But this company that I'm good with now, they loved what you did for us. But now this company does have the money to pay you.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I'd probably, you know, that's where it's happened to me. It's done that for me. You know, I've painted bikes for people that I didn't really get paid to do it. And then next thing you know, they were the connection between something that was lucrative, you know what I mean, that did really pay some bills and make some things happen. So, it's just, I guess you got to fly by the seat of your pants of knowing like, okay, I like what this company's doing. I want to be a part of it. And if you go in with that kind of mindset, I think that you're going to gain more for it and maybe not feel so like fucked over if it doesn't go the way you kind of envisioned it when you were thinking about it, you know. But there's just like we were, you know, bringing it back to the beginning of the conversation, it just seems like a lot of people, you know, I'd like to, like, we just had a podcast with my other friend that's an amazing airbrush artist, right? And he talked about how he found photographers that did like Noir type old Hollywood style photos to use for reference. And, you know, he did it the right way. He called them up and requested to purchase some images, high resolution images and stuff like that. And then, you know, other bikes he's taken to a camera himself and try to create the image that, or the structure of the image that he wants to airbrush.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is, you know, there's just a lot of facets to it, man, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's no science to it, really. There's a lot of gut feeling behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's probably the, at least for me, that's like the biggest constant hurdle, I guess, of working for yourself is, I mean, like, yeah, I'm not doing a lot of free work nowadays just because maybe I'm not branching out into this, that, or the other, or whatever. That's just my situation right now. But like pricing still, I have this job that I'll price one way, and a lot of it has to do with who I'm shooting for or what their scope is, what, like, how big they are, what the images I'll create will do for them, versus another company that I may shoot something that's really similar and I've got to price it totally differently just because maybe they can't afford it, or maybe I don't feel good about asking for a certain amount for something that I know isn't worth it, you know?
Yeah. It becomes hard because, like, you know, same thing with paintwork. Like, you know, there's people in our industry that charge, you know, 3-4 times what I charge. And I'm not saying that they're better or worse than me. I mean, it's just, that's what they charge. They have the name.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what it is that once you kind of have the name and the, what I'm learning, you know, because we do a lot of helmets now, and
which are so sick.
Thanks. We do a lot of helmets, and when the pricing that we charge to do the helmets, like, I would never pay that.
Yeah.
It's not valuable to me, I guess. I mean, it's valuable, but because I know how to do it, I don't see it the same way a customer sees it or whatever, you know, but
yeah.
We're so overwhelmed with people that want them that, and I can only do so much a month, and I have such a high demand that the only logical thing to do is raise the price, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if I'm doing them at $1,500, is kind of where we're at right now, and I got more people still like, fuck yeah, dude, I just want one of these helmets. I want one. I could raise that price to $2,000 for that helmet, and I'm gonna lose some of those customers, but I might not. And I'll probably, if I have 10 people that are totally down for $1,500, right?
Yeah.
Well, if only half of them do the 2,000 mark, but I could do half of them that month, I can't do all 10 that month.
Yeah.
I'm making more money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of a strange thing. It's like, I don't want to price myself into this like category of like ultra bougie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
or totally price yourself out of it.
Yeah, price myself out of it. But at the same time, like, you know, I'm, 35 years old. I've been paying my dues a long time, or whatever the case may be, and I want to feel like all this hard work, all these like going to this shop and then turn around and working all day and going to this shop till 2 or 3 in the morning and painting cars and doing hood murals and all this crazy shit has paid the way so that I can get $2,000 to paint a helmet.
Yeah.
And I can eat comfortably and live comfortably, and I've realized that once for the artwork that we do, once you eliminate the stresses of financial strains, the type of artwork that you can do, because your mind's not on rent, it's not on cell phone bill or whatever the case may be, like, it opens up a new pathway of like creativity that has been blocked from all the strains of life. You know what I mean? So it's I feel like even though I've done some great work, I feel like I'm barely tapping on the inner parts that I haven't been able to use yet. Yeah. Because financially we're doing better now. Our business is like, we don't have to paint 40 bikes a month. Now we can do 2 a month and eat just as the same. You know what I mean? So.
Well, and the good thing too is the quality of work because of that will go up so much more. Mm-hmm. You're not just cranking them out.
Exactly.
Like, you get to spend some time with 1 or 2 or however many and just kill it.
That's the goal, man. And then, like I was telling you before, it's like we've been kicking the ideas of doing, we love the culture that we're in. Like, I love motorcycles, man. Like, it's crazy because motorcycles were my canvas, but now the art isn't my passion anymore. The bike is. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm more in love with what I do on a motorcycle than like do on it as far as like the traveling and the people I meet and the things that I do on it. become the hobby realistically. When paint used to be the hobby, it used to be what I used to come home from work and I'd be in my garage painting canvases and doing all this crazy stuff. Like I loved art at that time.
Yeah.
But then art over the last 10 years has become my job, and motorcycles have become my release. You know what I mean?
I feel that too. Like there will be times where, I mean, I have stuff from those recent trips I was talking about where I've got some photos that are killer. Mm-hmm. And like, they haven't seen the light of day. Like, like I went through, I edited them, they look great. I had that moment, and then I was like, okay, like they didn't go anywhere. I didn't post them to anything, just because it was like, I don't know, like the being there was good, worth it enough, right? Yeah. That, I mean, like Cannon Beach, Oregon, right? Like everyone's seen a photo of that, or pick whatever national monument or landscape or whatever. Everybody's seen it, right? And if it's not different enough, or if it it just wasn't doing enough for me, I mean, those are just living on a hard drive somewhere.
Yeah.
But like being there was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I totally get that.
I guess the thing for me is that when I go to places like Monument Valley, like, I don't know why I'm so compelled to want to show people shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even with this whole podcast medium, it's like I started taking so much from conversation. So I was like, man, like, this podcast thing is cool. Why don't, I find a way so that other people can hear from people like yourself and all the other people in the industry that I take inspiration from.
Yeah, because it's worth sharing.
And man, it's a new untapped thing for me where, now I'm in the market of loving to show people things that maybe they haven't been exposed to, because I've realized that a lot of my life now that I hold dear to me is things I was never exposed to.
Yeah.
So it's like some weird like connect or like responsibility type feeling that is totally not my responsibility, but I'm taking on the responsibility. And I'm finding like joy in it. Like I'm finding, I enjoy being not necessarily like I enjoy the spotlight. I enjoy just being a part of a conversation with somebody, and all that type of stuff, or showing people, or going on a bike trip and inspiring fucking people to jump on the trip with us and come ride through Utah and Colorado with us.
Yeah, that's it.
And experience like the shit that we've done. Even though like I think for some people like it's life changing for me, but it ain't gonna be the same experience for everybody. Like I might be selling them really good on Monument Valley, and they're like getting there thinking like
they get there and it's just like, a bunch of rocks.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of rocks, and it's pretty at night, kind of. But it's a weird dynamic, man. It really is, because I'm finding joy in that, but I'm using the bikes and the paintwork and the things that I do for a living to get the exposure to then show them all this other shit, you know what I mean? And to take inspiration from, man. Like I said, I meet people like you and all other people along the way that that it's just good stories and good like ideas that some people need to hear, man. You know?
I mean, yeah, and if it's 1 in 100 people that listen or see something that take something away from it,
yeah,
then it was kind of worth
exactly
doing, right? Yeah, no, I feel that for sure.
Yeah, so, one of the good things about this is that we've, our listener base is kind of all over the world. If from what we're seeing on our analytics, it's like, I think it's all like military bases across the world, though.
Sick.
So you got like all these like countries, like they speak English there. And I'm like, there's probably a military base there, and he's into Dynas and FXRs and shit or something.
The Americans there.
Yeah, so I'm like super pumped because somebody in China is listening to this. I'm like, it's probably a white dude over there.
Hey, they might have an underground scene. You don't know.
Yeah, definitely. But man, that's what's cool about it all, man. Is just doing that shit. And then, like I said, when we start traveling with this podcast, man, like, and just our social media in general, like we get people that are like link up with us.
Yeah.
Like the night before I met you, we were coming through Santa Fe. And some dude from Albuquerque drove to Santa Fe, had dinner with us, and killed a 12-pack with us, and then rode home.
Tight.
And it was a great experience. It was a great just shooting the shit with this guy. Hearing about Albuquerque, hearing about his like, you could easily podcast everybody you meet out here and take from it. Like, what's it like in Albuquerque? Like,
yeah, everybody's got something cool.
Exactly.
Something worth saying.
Well, shit. So you said you were going out of town. What's the big plans coming up for you? And then we'll start wrapping this up.
I'm going out of town?
You said you're going to be here, or you're in between things or something?
Oh, no, I've just got a full week next week, but...
That's cool.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that when I talked to you about what we were going to talk about on this, about it being about travel. I said about 10 times. With it being about travel, I was thinking like, man, I need to plan something. I need to think about my next travel. And so that's been bouncing around in my head.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't have been. I would have just kind of gotten stale in whatever I'm doing. But yeah, so I've got ideas bouncing. I feel like I've done Western United States quite a bit. Like I've done the loop 3 times now, which isn't a bad thing. I could go and do it all again.
Dude, I fell in love with the Smoky Mountains. I don't know if you've been through there in like Eastern Tennessee, North Carolina border. Dude, it is. I was never keen on going there because just the massive amounts of landmarks and major cities on the western side of the country is way more enticing than old towns tucked in small mountains. You know what I mean? But when I went out there, and man, I was just floored, man. Like I think Chattanooga was the first town I came into, and I was totally in love with that town. And I was only there. I just found the ghettoest part of town and slept in a hotel there. It was right when the hurricane was coming through Florida, so everybody was headed north.
Just cramming in.
Yeah, so like all the hotels were booked. It wasn't planned or anything like that. But the Smoky Mountains, man, like there's some like history in that shit, man. Like there's a lot. I mean, I've always said like going east is like stepping back in time. You're
true.
There was the Trail of Tears was right there, the Indian Trail where they had to walk across the United States, whatever the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
There was that, and then you get in the North Carolina area. There's like all these fucking old Civil War battlegrounds, and even prior to that, and so you just kind of get lost. And then of course the towns are older; they're very old towns. The structures are super old. I mean, for us on bikes, man, every road you turn right or left on is a winding, beautiful, landscaped road.
Super fun to ride,
But just the everything, man, I was really floored by it, and I want to go back, man, I really do, and I want to go further north. You know what I mean? I want to go because, like you said, in New York, I haven't been that far, and I can only imagine the oldness of some areas in that they're like, fuck, man, this is like the beginning of this continent's civilization. Structured civilization. You know what I mean? So, east, man. There's some hidden gems out there.
I think what I might do is I may just get a map out and like close my eyes and point at something.
There's got to be something.
Because something cool.
Just don't land on Kansas.
There. Yeah.
There's one cool thing in Kansas I saw on Instagram. It was like some rock formations, and I saw some like galaxy photos behind it, and I was like, that looks cool. But then I Google Earth it, and it's like literally looks like some sand dunes or some shit in the middle of a cornfield, and I'm like, I'm not driving that far to check that out. There's nothing close to it.
Okay, but I'll take Kansas. I'll take that.
There's a lot of
watch. You've just lost like half your followers. Everybody in Kansas.
Kansas is just on the way to Sturgis.
Good pit stop.
Nebraska's a pretty area. Like western Nebraska I think it's pretty dope. And like I said, I'm a history, but I love history.
Yeah.
So like the railroad, went through Nebraska and Wyoming. They were using that route to kind of clear the mountains and shit. And Cheyenne, Laramie, all those places are right there along the stuff. And we've ridden through all those towns, and it's pretty surreal being there. And then there was this TV show that I got into called like Hell on Wheels.
Yeah, dude, that show's awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm like, holy shit, like that's on the way to Sturgis, Like they were talking about all these towns that they were building these towns while they built the railroad, and they leave and the town, floors.
Kind of stays, and
So it was a pretty interesting thing to see and then go through it. Same thing with like the first time I went to Sturgis, Deadwood's there, which if you haven't been there, you need to go up there, like just. You would probably enjoy it a lot more because we go through during the week, the 2 weeks it's bike stuff, and it's just like you said about
wall-to-wall bikes,
everywhere. So there's not a whole lot of off the beaten path you can really get away with. You know what I mean? But there's, you have the Mount Rushmore, and then right behind that is Crazy Horse, and there's you can get lost in the history of that. You know what I mean? Then you got Deadwood, which is this old gambling town where gold miners, like, you know, and you can see the fucking chair that Wild Bill got shot in the back of the head on.
Awesome.
There's just so much cool shit there, man. And it's like a really gritty kind of cowboy feel. Like, I've always felt like Texas, like, we're the cowboys. Like, no.
Yeah, we're freaking not.
You go up to there and you feel like these motherfuckers were doing some cowboy shit back in the day.
You go get in Wyoming or any
definitely.
of those places, you'll find some cowboys.
Some real ones, you know. We got ranchers down here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what.
So yeah, man. Travel. What else, man? Anything cool you got thinking coming up? Or
Dude, it's just about to start getting hot.
yeah,
I may have to really start thinking about getting somewhere cool.
I'm telling you, man, Sturgis is the way. Just check it, dude. You got the Black Hills, which is you can get lost in that for a week. Then you got the Badlands, which is within 50, 60 miles from there. And then you got the Devil's Tower in Wyoming, which is right down.
Okay, I saw that for the first time the other day, and it was because dude, I fell deep into the black hole of YouTube one night, and it was this little mini documentary about a guy who skydived, parachuted, landed on top of it, and then had this plan to like toss ropes and rappel down, but some part of it ended up not working, or the ropes were too short, or something, hurt himself when he landed or something. So stuck up there for 3 days.
Damn.
And he's the only, I mean, you are not allowed to do it, but he's the only person that's ever, you can climb to the top of it, I think, don't quote me, but he's the only person that's ever skydived and parachuted and landed on top of Devil's Tower. And this was something crazy. This was like 1950s or something.
Oh, shit.
Where he's like jumping out of like a friend's plane and like ghetto rigged this whole thing and not thought through any of it. It was worth listening to or trying to find or look up. Maybe I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I'd never seen that place, and it's wild.
Yeah, like, man, so that, like I said, that little concentrated area right there is just full of some cool shit. Rapid City is a artsy fartsy town, dude. It is like I said, it's in South Dakota. You think like more ranchers and cowboys, but man, there are so many art. Like, it's a very artistic town. Like, it's kind of like a lot of towns in Colorado are now. You know,
Yeah.
like
I'm imagining like Santa Fe in my head, kind of.
Yeah, it's like that. Or I kind of got the same vibe when I was in what is that? Durango, Colorado. It's kind of like got that old vibe, but really, they kind of built off that old culture of that railroad shit going through, and then, it was one of the crossroads, across the country. And, the old town, they got that graffiti alley, which we always go there and take pictures. It's like,
I know what you're talking about, yeah. I know.
And I've met a lot of artists back there just doing work. Like, it's like a statement for a painter of some sort to come to Rapid City and do a piece in that alley.
Yeah.
But, last time I was there, this guy was telling me how a lot of people are starting to buy the properties and they don't want it painted in the back because these hipster people are fucking trying to do their own thing and stuff, and it's taken away that nostalgic about it. Like, trust me, I told him, like, dude, that's the only reason I come to this fucking town, other than that you have a Walmart and you're the only Walmart within 50 miles here.
Yeah.
So if this alley wasn't here, I would not come here. So all these people that are like trying to change it or take it away or make it not what it is, and they're erasing the allure of the town. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like a kiosk in the mall. I didn't come to the mall to see you, but you're here. It's nice. I might buy a fucking gold watch or some shit. I don't know. So it's like those businesses are just there. Like, oh shit, there's a restaurant. We're hungry. Let's go eat it. Not like, hey, we're going to this restaurant. You know what I mean? So, it's kind of like, it sucks when these people, kind of come in and they try to like, and it's crazy because they're young and you would think they'd be into it, like all the graffiti shit's everywhere, like down in Austin and stuff, like they embrace that stuff.
Castle Hill or whatever that one spot is.
But yeah, dude, you got to check out South Dakota. It's not bad. And then if you go up through like Raton, New Mexico, and then hit, 25 up through Colorado, it's an even more scenic ride. And then loop it back home and go through the boringest part of the country.
Yeah, that's the thing, man, is I've got places I want to go. It's just about like making that really efficient, effective loop around it.
Yeah, I don't like going back the same way I come places.
Well, and we're just not close enough. Like, it's not convenient to just go to one place because you're 12 hours deep into a drive and you know you've got to take it back. So, yeah, it's worth it for me to take more time off, which means more money coming out of my pocket is going into my pocket.
It's definitely not cheap to live this way.
No, it is not. And people that do it full time, I applaud you because.
Well, that's why so many people are going and, you know, like trying to not have brand new truck payments. And they're trying to just live as cheap as possible so that the hit is not that hard when you go out on the road for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. So it's like you could literally make all your wages for the month in like 2 weeks, and then you have 2 weeks to fuck off, basically. You know, and that's kind of I think the premise behind a lot of people's travel ideas now is to.
Which I think is awesome.
Yeah. So tell everybody your website, Instagram, all that stuff.
Yeah, so everywhere I'm Stephen Heger. So StevenHeger. Instagram, I'm at Stephen Heger, and StephenHeger.com. Check me out.
Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming out. You literally woke me up with your knock on the door, so it's all good. I need to get my ass up anyway.
Nice, man. Well, I'm glad to be on it.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
That's that. Hope you guys enjoyed that podcast.
Yeah, hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to follow Steve. I'm sure he just told you what it was to follow him at, so check him out. Support a dude that's doing rad shit. Yeah, thanks again for listening, man. We appreciate it. We appreciate all you guys. It's been continually, is that the right
Yeah,
word?
that's exactly how to say
All
it,
right,
man.
continually supporting us and, you know, checking out this podcast and supporting us on our Patreon and reviewing us on all this stuff, man. All that stuff means a lot, and we appreciate it. So thank you for doing it and for continuing to do it. And, yeah, it's pretty awesome. So also, I hope that you guys are also checking out our sponsors, Texas Performance MC. Check them out online, Instagram. Mark's a rad dude. I'm actually trying to figure out right now how to get my motor to him from my Dyna and my FXR so that he can get to looking into it and seeing what we need to do to make these things get back on the road, because I'm starting to miss both of those bikes. And one of them I've never even ridden, so I don't know why the fuck I miss it. But check him out. Also, don't forget Paint Huffer Metal Flake. Those dudes are the shit. Flaky as fuck. No, I'm just kidding.
Flaky as fuck. Good
Nah.
attempt, though. Good attempt.
They're good. They're I love them. They're the paint company that I wish every other paint company was in this industry. So yeah, I'm just glad that they support us because I support them 100%. So check them out. Paint Huffer Metal Flake, painthuffer.com. Fuck with your boys. You know what I mean? Also, I think we recorded a podcast with FXR Mike Sunday night. It's a long one. We might do some editing to it. I don't know. It was kind of a weird podcast, to be honest with you. Not Mike's fault, more our fault. But you know, it's just one of those deals. We're in the air. See how it's gonna play out. But yeah, don't know for a fact if we'll release that on Thursday or next week. We're kind of hitting a slump right now with guests just because, you know, I'm about to hit the road, which we'll be getting a lot of good podcasts for you once we do. But, you know, until then, it's actually just grind season right now, trying to get all these things done before I take a couple of days off from the shop. So bear with us. I'm pretty sure you can go without hearing my ass for a couple of days or a week. But thanks for the continued support. Don't forget to check out our Patreon, which you can find a link to that on our website, fastlifegarage.com. Also, you can get a link to our YouTube, iTunes, and all our social medias. So at any rate, we appreciate everything you guys are doing for us. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Later.